Hello everyone. It's lovely to have everyone here today. Good morning everyone. I think we are gonna begin a fun journey today. So I think everyone's set and all ready for a day filled with a lot of sessions, a lot of learning, a lot of fun. Okay. So hello to you all. I am Shruti, the Senior Program Officer, Formal Education at WWF-India in the Environment Education Division. I welcome you all, student and teacher delegates from all over the country. The Model Conference of Parties, MCOP, first launched by WWF India in 2020, is a simulation of Global Conference of the Parties under the Convention on Biological Diversity. It serves as a platform for young people to participate in environmental governance and conservation action. MCOP fosters environmentally conscious, active citizens who can navigate real world challenges and build a sustainable future through a variety of expert sessions, skill building workshops, action planning, and project work. This is day one of MCOP 6. As you know, the virtual MCOP 6 will spread out in the next 4 days. That is 15 July, that is today, to 18 July 2025. So first and foremost, let's do a quick vibe check. Tell us how you're feeling today with the emojis that you're going to see on the screen. So tell us in the chat box. Uh, can we have the next slide? Okay. So in the chat box, use any of these emojis. So starry eyes means that you're supercharged. The sunglass means that you're feeling positive. The wide smile means you're excited. And the thinking means that you're curious to know what's in store today. I can see a lot of starry eyes. Oh, there's some cool sunglasses too. We are also super excited, super positive, and supercharged. Amazing. So we just want to tell you that you shouldn't be nervous today. And all these 4 days, we're going to have a lot of learning and a lot of fun. So remember, all of us here are in this together. And we hope this journey helps you learn and take back great memories. So let's get started. Before anything else, I would like to discuss some house rules. So please join from a desktop or a laptop. Sit in a spot with good internet connectivity. Ask questions in the Q&A section and participate actively in the chat box. And please refrain from sending out messages that are constantly, they might disturb others or you might not be able to hear others speak. And listen and learn. It's going to be a fun journey. So I would request all of you to change your names to say Aman Sharma, Delhi delegation. So like we have written, so for example, for me, it's Shruti Das, WWF India. Similarly, you can write your name and the state that you're from. So you can just write Aman Sharma, Delhi, or whatever your name is, your full name and the state. Also, let us know in the chat box the number of people you are with who are watching today's session together. So for example, I am here with 5 to 6 people. So I will write Shruti Das, Delhi, 6 people. Okay. So the agenda for today is that we are going to have a line of sessions with a welcome address, setting of the expectations for today by Ms. Neha Raghav. And then Ms. Avni will take us through the entire journey and timeline of MCOP 6. And we have a wonderful message from the CBD Executive Secretary. Then we will have our first session by Dr. J. Sandrapandi and the negotiation and consensus building from Dr. V.B. Mathur. And we'll end today's day with the technology for conservation session and a Q&A. So without any further ado, first, let's say all the pandas, let's say hi to our participants. So I can call out the name and the pandas can say hi to everyone. So first we have Miss Neha Raghav. Neha, can you say hi to everyone?
Hello, everyone.
Then next up we have Sulagna Roy.
Hello everyone, welcome.
Then we have Avni Gupta.
Hi, good morning.
Next up we have Riddhi Malhotra.
Hi everyone, a very warm welcome.
Then it's of course me, your MC for today. So hello. Then we have Kabir Israni.
Hello everyone.
And last but not the least, we have Prajakta.
Hi.
Okay, lovely. So without any further ado, I would like to welcome Ms. Neha Raghav, the Director of the Environment Education Division at WWF India, to welcome all of you and tell you a bit more about MCOP 6.
Thank you so much, Shruti. I hope I'm audible. Just in case I'm not, please mention it in the chat. Else it is fine. So to get started, a very good morning to everyone. A very warm welcome to WWF India's Model Conference of Parties. This is the 6th edition. I am Neha Raghav. I lead Environment Education Initiatives for WWF India, and I'm thrilled to see so many passionate young minds gathered here from all over the country. I can see almost 200 plus connections. And as I can also read through the chats, that there are at least 10 children or 10 participants with a coordinating teacher sitting behind each connection. So I'm assuming we are right now sitting with 2,000 plus students and teachers at this webinar. So I'm very, very fortunate to have you all here and have this opportunity to work with you all towards building a better planet. So moving on to the most important thing, the reason why we have all gathered here, the Model Conference of Parties. Can I have the next slide, please? Okay, so Model Conference of Parties, it's not just a conference, it's a very unique platform where each one of you get an opportunity to step into the shoes of global leaders and decision makers who shape the future of biodiversity and sustainable development in India. And you never know, it could also be the globe. This year-long journey will challenge you to learn, debate, and collaborate on real-world environmental issues, just like the actual conference of parties under the United Nations Convention on Biological Diversity. Before I move further and talk a little bit more about our mission, I'd also like to share with you that the Model Conference of Parties would not have been possible without the support of our partners. So first and foremost, I'd like to thank Capgemini, who have been supporting us and partnering with us for past whole decade to make sure that we talk about environment. Environment education is embedded into the school system. Children like you have access to scientifically accurate, interesting, engaging resources through our digital resource center, which is called One Planet Academy. I'd also like to thank UNDP for being our partner, and you will be meeting a lot of experts from all our partners. So certainly UNDP is one. United Nations Environment Program is another partner. So I'd like to thank them as well for all the support we receive from them. Convention on Biological Diversity based in Montreal. I'd like to thank Chantal and the Executive Secretary, Astrid, who has sent a special message for all of you. I'd also like to thank Development Alternatives, who have agreed to partner with us on this. Following this 4-day conference, there would be a whole lot of expert sessions from all our partners that you will get to participate in and enhance your learning. I'd like to thank IUCN-CC, who's also our partners. So thank you to everyone for supporting us through this wonderful initiative. So moving on to the mission. with which the Model Conference of Parties was started. It is very simple but extremely powerful. Can I have the previous slide, please, on our mission? And the idea is that we empower young people such as you to become informed and confident advocates for nature. Through MCOP 6, you will explore innovative solutions, engage in meaningful dialogue, and contribute to shaping policies that protect our planet's precious biodiversity. You will be working with multiple stakeholders, from the local authorities to your school authorities, to the residential complexes that you live with. So here is an opportunity where you will be able to collaborate and work with people around you and people who impact your everyday life. So can I have the next slide? So what should you expect at MCOP? So certainly during these 4 days of MCOP, there would be tons of sessions, simulations. We will be talking about projects under the Global Biodiversity Framework 2030 goals. You will be learning from experts and peers, and this journey will continue even after these 4 days. So you will have to stay tuned and stay connected with us. Over a period of 6 months after this 4-day conference, you will be undertaking collaborative projects. You will engage with policymakers, fellow students. You will build skills in negotiation, critical thinking, and science-based communication. And this is your chance to make your voice heard and be a part of the growing community dedicated to conservation. So here's your chance to amplify your voice for nature. I know we all already understand how important it is to have healthy environment, which is so important for our well-being. And I welcome you all to join the conservation movement through the Model Conference of Parties. Can I have the next slide, please? And of course, at MCOP, we go along with certain values that we hold very close to our heart. We encourage creativity and we encourage creative solutions. We would really encourage all of you to be more inclusive, ensure that you have representation from all communities that you're working with. Make sure that you respect people that you're working with, and all, of course, during the conference and and also during the time when you will be undertaking the projects, make sure that you display respect and you find every opportunity to collaborate and multiply the impact that you are able to create. It's very important that you think boldly. Don't be scared of audacious and ambitious goals. Go for something which sometimes may scare you. Oh my God, how will I reach 500 people? Oh my God, how will I have these 2,000 children of Model Conference of Parties actually take action? It's an ambitious and audacious goal for me. I would encourage you all to listen actively. Can I have the previous slide, please? Yeah. And I look forward to working together with all of you for the benefit of people as well as nature. So let's begin. Let's embark on this exciting journey together and with enthusiasm and determination. Can I have the next slide? I think there is some lag in the movement of slides. So by participating in MCOP 6, you're joining the movement that goes beyond this conference. Your projects, actions will contribute to real change in your schools. You are the future leaders of conservation, and your commitment today will shape the world of tomorrow. We will all grow old and we might have to step aside and let you guys take the lead. So that's what we are preparing ourselves for. So let's embark on this exciting journey. I encourage you to engage fully through these 4 days of conference. And even when you're undertaking the project, collaborate openly. And most importantly, enjoy the process of learning and growing yourselves as change makers. Thank you for being here. Let's make an MCOP a transformative experience for all. So here I have a few. So there is a minor glitch here, I believe, and I'm just waiting for some of my slides, which I am going to use to set the expectations. Yep, all this is done. Yeah, okay, I'm here at the expectation setting. And this is for the virtual learning sessions, which will happen over the next 4 days. And it's very important that you all join these sessions in time, because if you don't, it will be a lost opportunity, because then you may not be able to interact with the experts if you don't listen to them carefully. Do not disrupt. I know you all are very excited and you continue to send a lot of emoticons. Do not do that, because that may disrupt the speaker. So that may not happen. I think it needs another click so that the text appears. Yes. Okay. So listen very carefully and participate actively. Like Shruti mentioned, that if we are engaging in any activity, you can respond using the chat box. But if you have any question regarding Model Conference of Parties, or if you have a question to an expert, you can write the name of the expert who you would like to direct the question to, and then write the question in the question and answer section, so that some of the questions may be answered live, and a few, because to manage time, the expert may have to answer some of your questions in the Q&A section itself. So thinking caps on and ask it as many questions as you can. Be very curious through this session. Take notes. Be kind and empathetic. I would say be kind to me as well. Okay. And of course, spread the learnings when you get back to your classmates. Talk to everybody about your experience. Tell people what you've learned. Encourage people. You can be the person who can bring about this change, and start people to think about environment and think about the actions which are harming the environment, and bring about a transformation. I have some expectation settings for the period when you will be undertaking the projects and you will be implementing your action plans on the ground. It's very important to follow the timeline, as you all know that we are all moving on a very tight rope to protect nature. So timeline is of immense importance. So follow the timeline. Stay active and connected. You will be having your exams, holidays, and this may not be the most important thing. So for such period, make sure that you're connected with your group members, make sure that you're connected with the community, and make sure that you're on the project and you don't lose steam and energy. Take ownership of the task undertaken. Take full responsibility. It's your own project. And of course, at the end, the best projects will win an opportunity to come to Delhi and interact with all these experts in person. And believe me, that is going to be a life-changing experience, when you will be meeting people who have already achieved so much, people who have contributed so much to the cause. Meeting them in person is a life-changing experience. It will be so inspiring. Stay motivated during this period and collect quality evidences of the impact created. I always tell people, if you haven't talked about what you have done, it's a waste, because nobody knows. Right? So it's very important that you're able to collect quality evidences of everything that you have done, and you put it together in a very meaningful and impressive way, so that we pick your project as the best project, and you get an opportunity to come to Delhi and meet all of us in person. So all the best to each one of you, and good luck with Modern Conference of Parties, the 6th edition.
Is that? Thank you.
Thank you.
See
See you all soon.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Neha. You've set the expectations straight for one and for all. MCOP 6, I think, is indeed going to be a mixed bag of lots of learning and lots of fun. So I would now like to call upon Ms. Avni Gupta, Senior Program Officer, Content and Training, WWF-India, to take us through the journey and timeline of MCOP 6. Over to you, Avni.
Hello, good morning, everyone. Firstly, I hope that you've understood everything that Neha and Shruti have covered. I will quickly brief you about the journey that we are going to have over the next several months and what the timeline is going to look like. So now that your school teams have registered, we have closed the registration window, and we're starting today, we have the virtual MCOP sessions. These span over 4 days, including today. So till Friday, we'll have a lot of exciting sessions. We'll have experts joining in. We'll have activities. We'll have a lot of discussions. We will answer all of your queries and so on. Towards the end of these virtual sessions, you will be selecting one target. So we will be providing you a list of 10 targets that you can choose from. Your school, each school will be selecting one of the targets. That is your choice on what target you'd like to select. And we'll explain on how to develop an action plan. This action plan is going to be a Word document, and you can share it with us as a Word or a PDF file. We'll share the templates with you through these sessions. Then you would be expected to implement the project on ground. That is, you'll have a window to submit the action plan for a week. And after that, you can start implementing the project. The implementation would be on ground. It depends on what action plan you've developed. And you will be implementing this over the next few months. So by the end of October, you would be done with implementation and you would need to write a report. We will also provide you with a format to write the report, and you'd finally have to submit the report in the first week of November. Through this implementation period, we'll also have several expert webinars and sessions where you will learn about your target. So we'll have 10 expert webinars with one for each of the targets, where you can ask the expert some questions that you may have, and they will answer all of your queries. You'll be submitting your report in the first week of November, after which our experts will be evaluating all the reports. And after the evaluation, we'll be selecting one best project from each state. So we'll have 36 best projects, one from each state and union territory. After this is done, we'll have interviews for all the 36 best projects, and we'll be selecting 2 best projects from each zone. So we have divided 5 zones: North, West, Central, South, and East. And we'll be selecting 2 best projects from the 36. So we'll have a total of 10 best projects, 2 from each zone. And these will be coming on ground for the MCOP finale in Delhi, which will happen in January. Can we please move to the timeline next? So as mentioned, you already know, MCOP virtual sessions are going to happen from the 15th to the 18th of July. Then we'll have the action plan submission for a week. So between the period of 19 to 27 of July, you can submit your action plans. We will convey the exact process of submitting the action plan as well as making the action plan on WhatsApp and on email. Then you will be doing an on-ground implementation between July to October. Finally, till the first week of November, you will be submitting the reports, and we'll be announcing the state level winners on the 1st of December. Finally, we'll have interviews, like I mentioned, 36 best projects. We'll have virtual interviews with our experts between the period of 8th to the 20th of December. Then we'll have the zonal winner announcement by the 22nd of December. And finally, they'll be coming. 10 best projects from the country will be coming for the MCOP finale to Delhi. So you know what you're in for. And I wish you all the best for this journey. If you have any queries, please feel free to put them in the chat box. And if you have any questions, please feel free to put them in the Q&A box. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Avni, for taking us through this entire journey. I am hoping everyone's really clear, and any questions, like she said, if you have any doubts that you have, kindly share it in the chat box. Okay. So next up, we have a wonderful message. We have a wonderful message from Miss Astrid Schumacher, the Executive Secretary of Convention of Biological Diversity. So are we ready to hear what she has in store for us and what she has to say? Okay, so let's listen up. Also, I would really request, as I said earlier in the chat box, please mention the number of people you are with who are watching MCOP 6 with us today. Like some schools have written that they are from For example, Dikshakpur plus 10 participants from Bharatram Global School, Indirapuram. So like that, if you can mention the number of participants that you are in the chat box. So you can do it while we bring you Ms. Astrid Schumacher's message.
Dear Model COP delegates, I am pleased to have this opportunity to speak at the opening session of the CBD Model Conference of the Parties, organized by WWF-India and their partners. Thank you for your commitment and energy, which have established Model COP as a tradition. Since 2020, inspired by the Daily Declaration, hundreds of young people like you have taken part in this remarkable initiative, founded on a strong commitment to the objectives of the Convention on Biological Diversity. This initiative fosters a lasting commitment to environmental multilateralism in the future generations of decision makers and citizens of India and beyond. As we see it, it also nurtures lifelong awareness of the centrality of biodiversity to human lives and of why the world must come together to halt and reverse biodiversity loss. We have been following Model COP activities with great interest. You are among the agents of change that are taking the world on a path to peace with nature. This year's theme, Generation 30, highlights the pivotal role of youth, your role, in achieving the targets of the Kunming-Montreal Global Biodiversity Framework by 2030. Young people, including the youth of indigenous peoples and local communities, are part of the whole of society push that is needed to achieve the 23 targets of the KMGBF by 2030. Often, you are the engine of this push. The world needs your energy and innovation to respond to the crisis afflicting our planet, a crisis in which biodiversity loss interacts with climate change, land degradation, and pollution and waste, putting the future of humanity in harm's way. Regardless of the field you choose to bring your contributions, you must be empowered to act. This is why the CBD Secretariat is a staunch advocate for youth participation and empowerment, so that you and others around the world can unlock your potential. Because we are in this together, and because you are the future. I wish to applaud WWF India's Environment Education Division for supporting your work. With its 70 offices spread across the country, WWF India is providing opportunities for you to think and act locally, to contribute to shaping community action plans, national biodiversity strategies and action plans, and to support the implementation of global goals. Let your ideas for transformative change rise like waves, turn the tide on biodiversity loss, and take us closer to where we want to be, living in harmony with nature. I wish you a stimulating Model COP6.
Wasn't that simply a very powerful message? We must come forward as a collective to hold and reverse biodiversity loss. I hope through all your projects and actions in the MCOP6, we can move a few steps forward towards the change in the right direction. I think we have heard like a number of people speak and there has been a lot of talking. So let's play a little Energizer with you. A little game to rattle all your heads. So this one's called Eco Emojis. So here's how it works. You will see a set of emojis on your screen. And then you have to guess the name of the animal or the bird. So you'll have 30 seconds to guess. So whatever your guess is, you have to write it in the chat box. And we'll call out the names of the person who has the correct answer. So ready? Everyone's ready for it? Okay. So the first one is this. Oh, that was really quick. Yes. So the answer is hornbill. Can we have the next slide? So did you know that the great hornbill is the state bird of both Kerala and of Arunachal Pradesh? Lovely, right? Okay, next. What's that? Fire ant. Where's the fire? Correct. It's leaf cutter ant. So leaf cutter ants are considered tiny farmers. They don't actually eat the leaves that they collect. They instead use them to grow a special fungus that becomes their actual food. Lovely, you guys are so smart. Okay, next. What's that? Yes, it's a rhinoceros beetle. And they live up to only 1 or 2 years. That's kind of sad. That's really a cute little rhinoceros beetle there. Okay, next. Yeah, so it's the saltwater crocodile. No, it's not the alligator, it's the saltwater crocodile. They are also one of the oldest creatures to walk the planet. Okay, let's go on to the next. What would that be? Yes, it's a spider monkey. Oh, wow, all of this is very easy for everyone. Lovely. Okay, the last one. Yes, it's the kingfisher. Did you know, I got to know this very recently, that they have a third transparent eyelid that protects them underwater. Lovely. So now that we have rattled your heads and all of you are now refreshed, let's have the first session of the day. So we are pleased to welcome Dr. J. Sandrapandi with us today. Okay, so we are pleased to welcome Dr. J. Sandrapandi with us today. Dr. Sandrapandi holds a PhD in botany with a specialization in plant taxonomy from the University of Madras. He has been associated with the National Biodiversity Authority since 2012 in various roles. Currently, he serves as a project officer for UNDP's Global Biodiversity Finance Initiative. He brings deep expertise in biodiversity governance and community-based conservation. So we welcome you, sir. Okay. So I think he'll be joining us in just a minute. So till then, tell us in the chat section, which session is it that you're the most excited about and why? That will also tell us if you were looking at the agenda correctly or not. Wow. Are you excited for Q&A, please. That's amazing because you should really ask a lot of questions. I'm sure you're going to have a lot of questions. Yes, even I'm excited for tech and biodiversity. Implementation and actions. A lot of you are excited for the Q&A sessions with the experts. Lovely. Tech and biodiversity. Amazing. Okay. Having a real impact, implementation of real. Okay, I think sir is here. So over to you, Dr. Sandrapandi.
Thank you, madam. Thank you, madam. Sorry, madam, there were some technical issues. This is a NIC connection, so.
That's absolutely okay, sir. Sir, would you like us to share your slides?
Just a minute, ma'am. Just a minute.
Yes, sure.
Ma'am, is it slide visible, ma'am?
Yes, it's visible, sir.
Okay, thank you, ma'am.
Yeah.
Thank you, madam. Thank you to all the panelists who have joined here. Even after many years, this IT system is still a problem for us. So thank you very much for the opportunity. I'll start by saying that you all know that, those of you who, I just joined and I just saw Astrid Shoemaker making that statement You all know that Astrid Shoemaker was kind enough to join us at Cali, Colombia at the 16th meeting of the Conference of Party in October, and she released our NBSAP, actually National Biodiversity Strategy and Action Plan. And many of you are aware. I hope my voice is visible. I mean, it's audible. Yes, yes.
Yeah,
Thank
it's
you, madam.
audible.
Thank you, madam. Thank you, madam. So basically, you all know that, I mean, those of you who are working with the Convention on Biological Diversity knows that, I mean, preparation of NBSAP is a legal requirement, actually, though it's, I mean, as per Article 6 of the Convention, it has two parts. Part A talks about, 6A talks about preparation, the 6B talks about mainstreaming those NBSAP related ideas into sectoral plans, programs, and policies. And in India, whatever we envisage to be implemented, it gets implemented. It gets implemented only through the plans, programs, and policies. So basically, 6A and 6B are very fundamental to the preparation of NBSAP. And you all know that, I mean, this is central to whatever the NBSAP holds. That's India's commitment to the Convention on Biological Diversity. So basically, what I want to say is that NBSAP is an important tool for mainstreaming biodiversity concerns into sectoral plans and programs. And you know that India meeting India, you all know that, I mean, India prepared its first generation National Biodiversity Strategy in Action Plan in the year 1999. And in the second generation, NBSAP was prepared in 2008. That means that the Biological Diversity Act came into force only in 2002, but then India prepared its two generations of NBSAP and in a very systematic manner in 1999 and 2008. And we prepared an addendum because the strategic plan and Aichi targets were adopted in 2010. Adopted in 2010. So basically, this is the overall framework that we have. Now India has to update its NBSAP again to prepare its third generation NBSAP because the Kunming-Montreal Biodiversity Framework was negotiated and it was adopted during the COP15, that is in December 2022. That's the basic framework under which the entire NBSAP program was happening. So basically, this is the overall framework. You will understand that 1992, the CBD framework was negotiated. In 1999, the first generation was prepared, and then 2006, we had the National Environmental Policy. What I mean to say is that India's updated NBSAP incorporates all the ideas that has been evolved over a period of last 2 decades, is what I want to say. In 2010, the strategic plan came into force, and then addendum was prepared in 2014. And in fact, India went ahead and prepared one document called Implementation of National Biodiversity Strategy and Action Plan in the year 2014. In between, there were several studies undertaken by IBBES, which were all incorporated from time to time into the framework. And in 2020, the Global Biodiversity Framework got negotiated, but then you all know that COVID was a major disruptor of the entire process. And in 2022, after a very prolonged negotiation, 23 goals, 4 goals and 23 targets were adopted by the Kunming-Montreal follow a rigorous process, and it was able to prepare its own updated National Biodiversity Strategy and Action Plan and launch it at Cali, Colombia in COP16, in the first part of COP16. One of the very important consideration in the NBSAP is that many of you who work in the conservation field knows that the first generation NBSAPs, I mean, whatever we did under that particular conservation ideas focused on fortress conservation. We call it as a fortress conservation in a sense that, I mean, we want to protect species for its own sake rather than involving communities, community ownership, things like that. So basically, it was a top-down sectoral approach. And then the second generation NBSAP started taking into account, along with the biodiversity, the ecosystem services component. That means BDES. That's the key word in IBBS, biodiversity and ecosystem services. You cannot have an ecosystem service without having the biodiversity, or the biodiversity without an ecosystem service. They are directly linked, and it has multiple objects and benefits. That's the main thing that, and one more thing is that communities were given more importance into conservation. That's the second generation NBSAP, and the third generation NBSAP we say is the whole of the government and whole of the society approach. That is the central principle of the KMGBF, because if you look at the NBSAP's target 20, 21, 22, 23, it all talks about the governance model where everybody has a role to play. That's the third generation NBSAP that the KMGBF and the CBD visualized. And one of the advantages as a country we have in India is that we have a very robust Biological Diversity Act, enacted in the year 2002. And in fact, one of the sections under 36, duties of the central and state government, it talks about, section 36(1) talks about the central government, it mandates or it legally requires the central government to develop national biodiversity strategy and action plans. And subsection 3 of the section 36 talks about integrating those actions into the plans, programs, and policies. That's a very important word, because whatever you do, whatever you want to achieve under the National Biodiversity Strategy and Action Plan, it should actually, that document should inform your plans, actions, and program. It's not the other way around. It is the whatever we commit at the international level, it should get into our plans, programs. That's the meaning of it. And another important amendment that happened under the Biological Diversity Act, that today we have the state governments which are preparing the SPSAPs. There is a legal mandate also under 36B to prepare state level plans, programs, and policies. This has to be done at the sub-national level. In our country, we call it as a state biodiversity SBSAP. Instead of NBSAP, we call them as SBSAPs. So that's the main thing. And then the most important, these are some of the SPSAP that we have been consistently preparing. In fact, the latest one is Telangana. Very recently, WWF prepared a very robust Arunachal Pradesh biodiversity strategy and action plan. I had the opportunity to see it. So WWF has a lot of competencies to do that kind of a work, and it was a very robust document. So this is the state level action plans that happened with every state, and under the Biological Diversity Act, this has to be prepared. I'm taking you a little bit backwards in a sense that you all know that, this happened, every 10 years we have to prepare these plans, is what this particular slide is trying to tell you. Earlier we had the UN Decade on Biodiversity. We call it as a UN Decade on Biodiversity from 2011 to 2020. In fact, in 2010 at COP10 Nagoya, this entire strategic plan of biodiversity, plan for biodiversity under the 20 HG biodiversity targets were well negotiated, and they were adopted. Each country went about and prepared their own national targets in alignment. India also prepared it. That's how the addendum 2014 came into picture. But what modification India did to the 20 IC targets is that we compressed them. We adopted only 12 targets. We compressed several targets because they were merged into 12 targets. And in fact, India has reported to CBD to say that India has already achieved certain targets like target 11 and 16. 11 talks about target 9 and 11, sorry, target 11 and 16. Yes, the protected areas, we are very good in doing in a sense that we have achieved earlier IC target about 17% terrestrial and 10% marine component. That is 27%. If you look at today's ASFR reports and other things, you will understand that India nearly has that number. Actually, 27% of our area is under some kind of a protection. That's where we adopt. In the KMGBF, we adopted the 30/30 target because 3% has to be ordered. So that this is not a very new idea in a sense that even India's National Forest Policy of 1988, if you look at it, it says one third of the country should be under some kind of a conservation. In a sense that some kind of a protection. That means 33% is what the India's National Forest Policy envisages, but we already have nearly 27% of that area under some kind of a protection. In fact, the OECMs and other concepts are coming in to say that, India can achieve the 30/30 target, is what I want to say under this slide. And in fact, India is a leader in implementing the access and benefit sharing provision of the Biological Diversity Act. And we have put in place, it comes under NBT 9, access and benefit sharing. We have, India has established a very robust institutional architecture, if I have to say, at the central level, at the national level, we have the National Biodiversity Authority. We have at the state level, on union territory level, we have the SBBs and UTBCs. And then at the local body level, we have the biodiversity management committees. These are all autonomous statutory bodies, which has its own powers and functions, very well written in the Biological Diversity Act, both in the earlier act as well as in the amended act. That in a sense that India is a very robust legal packing or legal framework to implement the convention at the national level is what I would say. And you all know that the 2021 to 2030 is a UN Decade on Restoration. Basically, this is a restoration decade. That's why if you look at the KMGBF targets, I'll come to that little later, you'll find that there are a lot of targets on restoration activities. And in fact, it includes, creating green jobs and other elements of the KMGBF. And it's a very important initiative. You all know that, the IPBS is the scientific body that informs what we try to put together under the KMGBF. In fact, many of you might have gone through the GBOs also, the Global Biodiversity Outlook prepared by the CBD. Whatever we submit as a national reports, it gets into some kind of a synthesis, and and the outputs are the Global Biodiversity Outlook. If you are interested, you can go through it. 4 and 5 are very important in a sense that 4 and 5 synthesis what we achieved or what we missed out during the strategic plan period of 2011 to 2020, and the IC targets elapsed with that. And now we have adapted new kinds of targets. That is the KMGBF, Kunming-Montreal Global Biodiversity Framework, and the targets. And one of the very important lessons that we learned is this. Basically, the KMGBF is guided by several principles. For example, urgency to act, actually. So basically, biodiversity loss is a very big risk that we are facing today. So there is an urgency to act. And it should be a party-led process, participatory, inclusive, gender-responsive, transformative. These are some of the very critical elements that got into the preparation of the Kunming-Montreal Global Biodiversity Framework during the negotiations. All these principles were taken on record, and they were incorporated very carefully into all the 23 targets that we have today under the KMGBF, as well as in the national biodiversity targets. In fact, we are India is very proud to say that we have not missed out on any target. We have made our commitments to implement all the 23 targets at the national level. That's what our National Biodiversity Strategy and Action Plan talks about. And this frameworks for everyone. Basically, one of the critical words that emerged from this KMGBF negotiation is the whole of the government and the whole of the society approach, which is a very important component of it. And this is what urgency to act, open, transparent, inclusive, science-based, and far-reaching, things like that. These are all some of the things. So basically, we learned a lot of lessons from IC target, in a sense that was the first time where you had a very robust framework and target setting happen in biodiversity science. Because in target setting in biodiversity science is very complex, in a sense that not one ministry or one department is responsible for the implementation of all the biodiversity related things. We have in India 23 ministries, and there are 57 ministries, out of which 50% have some kind of a one way or the other link to biodiversity conservation. In a sense that starting from the Department of Space up to the Ministry of Earth Sciences that deals with the marine resources, we have programs linked with the biodiversity science, and we have the life owning, in between life owning and life supporting departments. Say, for example, we have the agriculture, horticulture, fisheries, animal husbandries. These are all life owning department, in a sense that they are very fundamental to the maintenance of life. And these are some of the main considerations that we had under our NBSAP. And this is a negotiating history of the KMGBF, in a sense that the COP 1 was negotiated, and some parts of that KMGBF were completed during the first part in Kunming, and the second part happened in Montreal. That is the second part of the COP 15. That's where in December 2022, we say that the KMGBF was adopted. That's why this word KMGBF comes, Kunming, Montreal, because it was negotiated in two parts. Even the COP 16 happened in two parts, one in Cali, other one in Rome. So elaborate, it has gone through very elaborate negotiations, in a sense that CBD Secretariat prepared zero draft, and then updated zero draft, first draft. All these things were very carefully monitored by India, and from time to time, many Indian delegates participated in all these meetings, so that our concerns are very properly reflected there. So basically, you all know that those who are familiar with the Convention on Biological Diversity note, it has three objectives or three goals. It talks about conservation. The second goal is about a sustainable use, and the third is about accession benefit sharing. And then the fourth goal is added to the Kunming-Montreal Global Biodiversity Framework, in a sense that you can have all these three things achieved only when you have the means of implementation. That is the main word, actually. Means is basically what is the financial provision made to implement this convention at the global and national level. That's where the goal D comes into picture today. The target 19 of the KMGBF talks about the financial resources required to implement the KMGBF is nearly 200 billion. The additional 500 billion shall come from the subsidies. That is target 18, realigning subsidies or reducing subsidies. So basically, the overall framework requires nearly 700 billion per annum. That's the number that KMGBF has put together. And these are the 23 targets. All the 23 targets are adopted by India as part of its updated NBSAP. I would say basically they are broadly classified under three important categories. One is the reducing threats to biodiversity. Other one is meeting people's needs through sustainable use and benefits, and the other one is tools and solutions. Actually, basically, this is about the means of implementation, where the financial resources and capacity building are very well emphasized, because these are cross-cutting subjects where no department, no ministry, no individual can claim having that capacity to implement the entire KMGBF. It has to be a multi-sectoral, cross-sectoral approach to these particular subject. That's why the word whole of the government, whole of the society becomes very important. So basically, one of the very important targets under the KMGBF is target 2 and 3. Basically, 3 is about protected areas, where 30 by 30 comes into picture. The other important word is the OECMs, other effective area-based conservation measures. The earlier targets were already there. For example, invasive alien species. Urban biodiversity is again a very important target that was adopted during the KMGBF, in a sense that most of the, third world countries are urbanizing, developing countries are urbanizing in a fast-paced manner, where the population is migrating to urban centers. So there has to be a very robust consideration for urban biodiversity also. We do have CD biodiversity index and other concepts. That's where the urban biodiversity comes into picture. The other important target that was adopted is the business and biodiversity. Dependencies and responsibilities of business towards biodiversity is another important consideration in the KMGBF. We cannot achieve the KMGBF without having the private sector participation is one of the very important considerations of the KMGBF. The rest of the things, subsidies is again there. It was there in the IG also, and then financial resources, and then traditional knowledge. Gender is added. During the later part of the negotiations, women and girls were gender responsive approach to KMGBF was added as a new target. So basically, these are some of the very important considerations. Climate change is already there. We have a separate convention negotiated for that, but then biodiversity and climate change are interacting in a very robust manner. So those targets were already there, where nature-based solutions and ecosystem-based approaches are continuing to be debated. NBS versus EBA, people already talk about it. And I have already given you a broad-based framework on the vision of KMGBF is living in harmony with nature by 2030. And then by 2030, we must take urgent actions to halt and reverse biodiversity loss and put nature on path of recovery. This is what the entire KMGBF tries to achieve. India took some of the very important consideration before it prepared its updated national biodiversity strategy. Basically, we have taken the whole of the government, the whole of the society approach, and then we have considered the role of cities in the New Deal, and then we have taken into account the financial and business sector into a very important partner. In fact, India has already established a working group to look into the target 15 and 19 of the KMGBF. Basically, target 15 talks about business and biodiversity, and we have in India we have enacted the BRSR under the Ministry of Corporate Affairs, Business Responsibility and Sustainability Reporting, that has already kickstarted in the year 2024. So basically, India is already implementing some of these concepts that are already envisaged under the KMGBF is what I would say. Basically, this is the theory of change framework of the KMGBF. You all know it. Basically, all these direct drivers come basically from the IBBS assessment. IBBS assessment informs the KMGBF process. Like what we have the IPCC for climate change convention, we have the IBBS for biodiversity convention. So basically, this is what one of the very important consideration, again I repeat, is the means of implementation is very important. That's where we are stuck. Biodiversity sector as a whole under BioFin, we always assess how much money we are spending for biodiversity conservation in the country. There is always a financial gap, and what we are able to spend and expenditure and the financial needs, they don't match. Actually, there is a huge gap in that area. For example, if you ask me if Government of India has a scheme for eradication of invasive alien species, that is a program itself. We need a separate ministry to deal with that. Today, if you look at the major problem that is threatening Indian biodiversity, that is invasive alien species. And all our river systems, all our forest ecosystems are fully contaminated with invasive alien species like Lantana camara in forests or the Iconia crassipus in our water bodies. In order to eradicate them, we need a separate dedicated budget to deal with that. You all know that even today, India doesn't have a very dedicated or robust scheme to deal with that matter. It gets embedded in some of the schemes like the intensification of forest management scheme implemented by ministry. There is a component there. In the NTCA, there is a small component for eradication of invasive alien species or control of invasive. Other than that, we don't have a very dedicated program for controlling the invasive alien species. Likewise, City Biodiversity Ministry has a very dedicated program called Nagarvan Yojana. And then we have under the smart city parks are being established. It has to be scaled up in a big way so that, I mean, we achieve those targets is what I would say. This is the basic theory of change framework that is established by the KMGBF. And India followed a very, very robust process in a sense that we have very good experience in preparing these documents, policy documents, so that action can be taken. We follow the regional consultation, we follow national consultation, and then we had very important ministerial consultations everywhere. Whatever the inputs that can be gathered to prepare it has already been done, so that India's updated NBSAP is very robust, and it is an implementable document. That is what we try to achieve through that process. And India's NBSAP also has a very robust monitoring framework. These are some of the consultations that we organized, wherein all the people who are relevant to the State Forest Department, State Agriculture Department, State Biodiversity boards were called for this meeting. All the relevant inputs were taken, including the civil society organizations and the multinational organizations. This is the way that we did our consultation, starting from New Delhi, Hyderabad, Gaziranga, Bhopal, and interministerial. Again, we did a lot of interministerial work in Delhi. Also, that's how we got it released by Honorable Union Minister for State Kirtivardan Singh sir in Cali, Colombia. This is our story, and this 23 targets what India has already adopted. If you go to CBD web page, you will find that these are all the logo customization the CBD Secretary has done. We have simply adopted it, and all the 23 targets are being adopted by India, is what I would say. Basically, one of the very important consideration under the India's updated NBSAP is the biodiversity finance and resource mobilization. India continues to talk about what we are spending, what we need to implement NBSAP. So that, I mean, whoever is under the implementation, they are very sensitive to that. And I gave you an example of invasive alien species eradication or control, where there is a huge lacuna there in terms of policy, in terms of finance. Everything is lacking in that area like that. So there are so many areas I highlighted, like urban biodiversity. Where are the dedicated schemes and program for that particular target is what is questionable. So there are several targets for which we need to kickstart our work. And one of the very important consideration of India's NBSAP, updated NBSAP, is the the monitoring framework that we have established. And this is the hierarchical approach that we follow. At the national level, we have the NBA. At the state level, we have the SBBs and union territory biodiversity. At the local body level, we have the biodiversity management committees. And this is the overall architecture. You all know it actually, national level, local level. So everybody is linked up. Everybody has a role and responsibility towards implementing the NBSAP is what I would say. And as I was telling you, one of the very important consideration under this KMGBF is the monitoring framework. In fact, we call it as a PMRR, planning, monitoring, reporting, and review. It's a separate agenda item itself in the it is a separate agenda item itself within the Kunming Montreal Global Biodiversity Framework. So basically, we are trying to, as part of India's 7th National Report to Convention, which is due for submission in February 2026, we are trying to prepare a national monitoring system and a very robust framework. We have adopted 142 indicators for 23 targets, which is a huge work. And another important considering the KMGBF is I was repeatedly telling about capacities. Actually, see, adapting a broad framework is very easy task. I mean, you can negotiate, you can implement, and then coming back and implement it at the national level is a big challenge. Actually, we find challenges everywhere as far as implementation of KMGBF is concerned. That's why CBD itself has coined this term capacity building and development. Actually, it should be capacity building and development. Again, it's a CBD. We need CBD to implement capacity building and development to implement NBSAP. For example, if I'm a plant taxonomist, I can easily say that our knowledge of the Indian knowledge of angiosperms is very robust. If you look at the lower taxa like bryophytes, lichens, or fungi, we don't have good people, or we don't have the expertise, or particularly in lower taxa, even in marine algae, I would say. These are some of the challenging areas where continuous training and capacity development is required. For example, if you want to train to become a plant taxonomist, you need to spend minimum 10 years to complete your PhD thesis. Those are some of the investments, time, and the capacities, the resources required. Somebody has to take up those studies so that the capacity buildings becomes a very robust. I mean, it is part of our implementation process itself. We need to assess what is the capacity we have. We need to build those capacities so that we we implement whatever we visualize. For example, the use of space technologies. The ministry is taking repeated meetings on this. How do we use space technology for managing our resources? Again, it's a big area. We do use space technology. We should be using a lot of space technology as far as implementation of KMGPF is concerned. For example, our forest maps can easily get prepared by Cartosat maps and things like that. But across the spectrum, for example, how do you manage your biodiversity heritage? If you ask me whether we have all this geospatial data, I would say that area is little gray, in a sense that we need a very robust framework to understand, to have the capacity to do this work, is what I would say. Basically, there is a web page in the National Biodiversity Authority website. Kindly go through it. We have uploaded all the relevant documents linked to this particular topic, and we will be adding some more to it also. So please, whenever you have time, you please go through it. I think I've completed well within my time. With this, I end my speech. Thank you. If there are questions, I'll answer them. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, sir. Thank you so much, Dr. Sandrapandi, for wonderfully making all our participants understand KMGBFs and NBSAPs. I think we have quite some questions from our participants for you, sir. So should we start with the first one?
Yes, madam. Yes, madam.
Okay. I think the first question is from Rimjim, and she has asked that as Sir has talked about the biodiversity over the years, what are the expectations they have for future?
Expectation from whom, madam? If I may ask.
I think, Rimjim, you'll be able to answer that better. Whose expectation are we talking about as biodiversity over the years? What are the expectations? So I think she's talking about what expectations do we have about our biodiversity in the future with the current scenario?
That's a very good question, madam. See, basically, you all know the principles of environmental governance, actually. See, one of the very important consideration in the principle is the precautionary principle. Basically, whatever we have inherited from our ancestors, we should protect it and pass it on to our next generation. See, we should not ensure that a species goes away from the planet Earth. That is a very important consideration. Basically, that's what informs the entire conservation science. We don't know what is the value of that biodiversity, so we should not destroy it, actually. And whatever we inherited, it should go back to. That's where the inter and intra-generational equity come into picture. Those are some of the points which govern the environmental governance globally, actually. Say the inter and intra-generational equity. Basically, whatever I enjoyed during my time should be passed on to the future generation also, is what that means. And the precautionary principle talks about if you don't know the value of a particular resource or a biodiversity, you must take adequate caution to protect it, so that in future that resource is passed on to the future generation. Yes, these are the two important considerations, I would say, that operates the biodiversity conservation. In fact, polluter pay principle is also there, and that operates at a different level. Yes.
Okay. Thank you so much, sir. Arshita has asked, why was there such a drastic shift in the focus of the different generations on biodiversity conservation?
You all know it. See, it's a biotic pressure, I would say, because you all know that, India is a very small land, actually. If you look at it geographically, we are only 2.4%, but today we hold 8% of globally recorded biodiversity. And then you look at the population, we are nearly 19% of the global population, and 17 to 18% of the cattle population. So you imagine the combined biotic pressure we are exerting on our natural resources. There is a nearly 18% of the human population, 17 to 18% of the cattle population, all on 2.4% of the land area, along with the recorded species of 8%. So this creates what we call it as a huge biotic pressure on our bioresources. Our land is always, stressed, in a sense that we have to produce more every day, every season we have to produce more. And where do that strength come from? That's why today we talk about the soil health. Actually, it's not about human or animal health. We talk about soil health, in a sense that there is a huge biotic pressure. So we need to take care of the soil also. That's why the word is soil health. In fact, the government has a very robust program on soil health card scheme. So they want to ensure that the soil is also maintained in a healthy manner. Yes. Yeah,
I think someone had, Pratiksha she wanted to clarify what Pratiksha wanted to clarify what IPLC means.
Indigenous people and local communities, madam. IPLCs. Yeah. That's an internationally used word, madam. In India, we use the word local communities. We don't recognize as IPLC. In India, if you go to South America and Africa, we still use the word IPLC, indigenous people and local communities.
Then Pratisha wanted to ask, how do we as students without legislative capacity create large-scale systemic change?
Madam, India has already launched the mission life. So we are for the changes to come from individual and societal level. That's why Mission Life is a very important program. Honorable Prime Minister launched it at a climate change convention itself. And then sustainable consumption and production is one of the targets of the KMG Web target 16 talks about sustainable production and consumption. So basically, we are into that. Actually, we look at it from all angles. For example, systemic change shall come from individual societies as well as from the legal framework. So everything combined, only we can achieve the positive result. Would be my basic answer to that.
Sorry, I think we'll take the last question for the day. Someone from grade 8, there's no name, has asked, what do you mean by invasive alien species?
See, you've gone to the definition. Say, for example, species that don't follow any laws, actually, don't follow any framework. I would say basically every species has its own framework. I mean, that is an unwanted or what is not required in that place, which species that occur in that place, we call it as invasive alien species. There is a very standard definition for that. I should check my definition and I'll get back to you, but you yourself can check it in Google. I mean, invasive alien species, basically they came from foreign lands. For example, the Parthenium hysterophorus, we call it as a Congress weed. And then we have these so many species, Iconiaca. Most of the South American plants become invasive and alien in a sense that in India they find the very conducive climate and they reproduce very profusely in an unnatural fashion. Their reproductive levels are very high and they simply dominate the native species, what invasive alien species is all about.
Thank you so much, Dr. Sandra Pandey. I think it was a wonderful session. I think a lot of questions were answered. Also, students, the questions that were not answered, we will send you the answers after today's session separately. So thank you so much, sir.
Thank you, madam. Thank you, madam. Thank you. Thank you for the opportunity. Thank you, madam.
Okay, I think we have a 5-minute break for all of you, and we shall meet after the 5 minutes. So see you back in a while. Also, I would request all the participants to not disrupt the meeting using emoticons or writing in the chat box unnecessarily. Let's stick to what's been asked, what to answer, so that everything can work in a better flow and you all also can understand and read better and hear other people. Also, like we said in the beginning, it's important to be respectful. Okay, thank you. See you in a while.
to everyone that I have been part of it from day one. And therefore, I make sure that I am not able to miss any of
Okay, welcome back. I think we had a good little break and we dive right into our next session. So we are pleased to call upon Dr. V.B. Mathur. Dr. Mathur most recently holds the position of the chairperson of the National Biodiversity Authority. He served for 33 years at the prestigious Wildlife Institute of India and also holds the position of dean and subsequently director from 2014 to 2019. Dr. Mathur has been actively contributing on biodiversity research, quality interface issues, and has been associated with as the Regional Vice Chair, United Nations Intergovernmental Platform on Biodiversity and Ecosystem Services, the UN CBD Bureau member. In July 22, he was elected as the Vice Chair of IPBES Bureau, and his area of interest includes wildlife management, international biodiversity negotiations, and green infrastructure development. So let's dive right into Dr. Mathur's session on negotiation and consensus building. And the Q&A section is open for you to write your questions. Till the session is on, Dr. Mathur can answer the questions, as many as he can, on the section itself. And after his session is over, we'll take questions. You can ask him questions directly. You can write in the same Q&A section and we'll ask him for you. So over to the next slide.
A very good morning to all my young students gathered today, virtually, of course, all across the country, many of them with their teachers and my colleagues in WWF, with whom I've been working for the last 6 years. This, as you know, is the MCOP 6th edition, and I say with pride to everyone that I have been part of it from day one. And therefore, I make sure that I am not able to miss any of these sessions. And what I'm going to do is in 2 parts. I would be talking, as you can see on the title, what are negotiations, how do you build consensus, and this discussion is in the context of biodiversity conservation. So what I'm going to do is to explain in 3 parts. Although in the last 3 days, you have been hearing a lot about biodiversity, and through your own learnings, you know what biodiversity is, but I will be also very pleased to share some of the new developments which are taking place. So we need to again reiterate why we need to conserve biodiversity, what is the global biodiversity framework which the world is talking about, and then come to our topic that what negotiations are and how can you become a good negotiator, and what is consensus building in the context of negotiations. So very quickly, biodiversity, as you know, is the variety and variability of life. What you can see on the screen, on the slide before you, that you can see plants, you can see animals, you can see mountains, you can see water body, you can see forests. All these, they denote and signify the biological diversity that we have on our planet Earth. But interestingly, this biodiversity is different in different regions. We all live in the tropics, so tropical biodiversity is different. If we were to go to Arctic, it would be different. It will go to Antarctic, it will go to deserts, meaning thereby that there is lot amount of variation in biological diversity that we see around us. And this is largely because latitude is different, altitude is different, temperatures are different, and rainfall is also different in different places. So a combination of these factors and a few others, they make the variability and variety of life, which we say as biological diversity over there. And we are lucky that the tropical countries where we are part of that, have the highest number of species of plants and animals. But I must also say that biological diversity or biodiversity, whatever way you want to call it, is not limited to wilderness alone. If you talk in terms of agriculture, there will be an agriculture biodiversity as well. So it is interpreted, it is explained in different ways. And we are now going to see what are the challenges in conserving, what the scientists are saying, what new assessments are saying. But before I do that, I want to draw your attention to the slide where you can see a person holding some soil in his hand. Yeah, I'm sure you can recognize an earthworm on that. And there are some plant twigs also you can. So what you see before you yourself on the slide is that there are plants and there are animals, but I want to draw your attention to what you do not see. And what you do not see are the millions and billions of bacteria, viruses, pathogens, which are inside the soil. And this soil is very, very important component. You cannot have any forest productivity without soil. We cannot have any agriculture productivity without soil. We cannot have horticulture productivity without soil. But look at our attitude, the way we deal with soil. Everywhere we find that the soil health is deteriorating, and therefore we cannot imagine to have a productivity. And therefore what you see in the slide is biodiversity underpins and sustains human quality of life. If we were to explain what biodiversity is, I think this single slide can do a lot. Variety and variability I talked about. Imagine our life if our moms and sisters were to cook only one dal or one cereal every day, 30 days or 365 days. Or we had only one spice to eat, what the life would be. So this variety and variability of life, which is what the biological diversity is providing is very, very important sources for us to sustain life. But now see what the slide is trying to say, that the contribution of biodiversity to people are deteriorating worldwide. And this is something I wanted to share with you, that we do understand the importance of biodiversity, but we also understand or should understand what are the threats and what are the challenges. What you see on the slide on your left are 18 contributions of biodiversity to people. This is what we say as nature's contribution to people. And on your right are their status in different regions in the world, whether it is Asia or Europe or Antarctic or whatever. So we find that everywhere the biodiversity values are declining. And in terms of biological diversity and contribution of nature, everybody understands that where do we get the clean water from? Where do we get the clean air from? And there is one important service which I want to flag is the pollinator services. This pollinator service is very, very important to sustain life, whether in forest or horticulture or wherever, and it comes free of charge. But what are we doing? The amount of pesticides we are putting in nature, amount of organic things that we are producing, putting in our soil. So these are some of the activities that you and I are doing, which are affecting what we call as nature's contribution to people. We all wear jeans. We are all very fashionable. Sometimes we also wear torn out jeans. But fashion is fashion. What I'm saying is a real life. That fabric of life on earth is deteriorating. You can very well imagine that how long these stitches can hold. And we are on a holding process alone. And it is anybody's guess that these stitches are not going to stay if we continue the business as usual. So what the scientists are saying, we have altered 75% of the land surface. We have altered 66% of the ocean area, and as much of 85% of the wetlands where water is there has been lost. So these are very serious figures which we need to understand, which we need to explain to our own friends and colleagues and teachers and siblings and policymakers and decision makers. See what this tiny little frog is saying, that global extinction rate is at least tens of hundreds of times higher. It's not that extinctions don't happen. Extinctions do happen in nature. But what we are saying is this accelerated rate of extinction, what we call as the anthropogenic rate, where you and I are involved and these extinction rates are going up. Draw your attention to this figure. So different taxonomy groups, whether we are talking of amphibians or mammals or birds or reptiles or fishes, all of them are subjected to extinction. But the extinction rates are very high in case of the amphibians, the tiny little frogs and toads that you see around. And if you look at the base, 1500, 1600, 1700 extinctions were taking place, but the rate of extinctions was low. Come 1900, come 2000, and we see these rates are going up. And these species which can provide very valuable contribution to our life are likely to get extinct if we do not take action now. This is again not just wild. On your right, you see these are some 20 different species of cattle which are found in different parts of the country. If you come from Rajasthan or Gujarat or Haryana or Uttar Pradesh, Madhya Pradesh, Punjab, you will find these local varieties which are there. But what is happening? People often ask that, what is climate change doing? What climate change is doing, because these species are evolved over a period of time against a certain temperature, against a certain rainfall, against certain microclimatic conditions. And if these are going to change, if the earth gets warmer or hotter, these species are going to get lost. So this is a very serious worry. People may say that, well, we can have hybrids, but hybrids also have a life. Again, you need to go to the wild to have the ancestors to start your hybridization process. So this is something, a cause of worry, which I wanted to share, that this variety and variability, which whatever we believe in God and Allah or Christ has given, has something which has to be maintained by you and us. This is a very strong statement I'm making. The planet is collapsing. Why? Because extinction rates are going up. Populations of large mammals and others are declining. And very recently, the IBIS, the Intergovernmental Panel on Biodiversity and Ecosystem Services, did this assessment. And it has given a report which says that up to 1 million species of plants and animals are at a risk of extinction if we continue with our business as usual. So this is a very, very drastic scenario I'm trying to paste before you. And the reason is that we have failed to address the critical challenges. If you talk to people who deal with climate change, if you look at the reports produced by the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, it's just warning that this threshold we are breaching. 1.5 degrees C, we should not go beyond that. But there are all kinds of indication that very soon, maybe in a few years' time or a few decades, we will be bridging this 1.5 degrees C threshold. We are already into the 6 marks extinction, and there is an overall decline. Try to compare the slide, the soil that you see on this slide and the one which I showed right in the beginning, how different it is. How can the soil be productive? How can it give us food? How can it give us other agriculture crops if we continue or make the situation of slides like this? So for us, it's very, very important that we must understand that poverty levels are linked to both nature and climate. If we do not do restoration work, if we do not conserve forests, if we do not preserve water bodies, then we are going to get into more and more cycles of poverty. You would all recall pandemics, not that I want to do it happily, but when COVID-19 came, we were taken by surprise. But the point is that from 2019 to now, what have we done? We are now realizing that 75% of the all emerging infectious diseases are called as zoonotic diseases. These are spread by animals over there. What you see on the right are different factors which have contributed to this pandemic. I don't want to get into the debate where the pathogen or the COVID-19 virus was invented in a lab over there. But what we now know that Wuhan in China, where the pandemic was first detected, there are markets which sell wild meats, there are markets which sell domestic meats, blood, tissue, and everything got mixed up and messed up. And that was the reason why the pathogen started moving from one individual to the other. And no matter what we tried to contain it, we had huge difficult time and large number of people lost their lives on that. So the lesson and the message is that while COVID-19 was something which took us by surprise, what is our preparation that COVID-25 or 26 should not take place? Already we see that the large amount of variants are there, sometimes some by the name of Delta or Omicron and so on and so forth. So we need to ensure that we maintain the integrity of our forests, of our water bodies, of our natural systems over there. Till few years back, biodiversity loss was not even considered by the global leaders. Now studies are pointing out that biodiversity loss is one of the top 5 threats to humanity. And I'll come in a while from now what happened in Davos and what is the learning from there. The science today is very clear. Very often we hear our politicians saying that we should refer this matter to this scientific institution or this agriculture science institution or the Wildlife Institute of India where I work. But we as scientists and a very large body of scientists are saying that science is very clear. We cannot continue to destroy biodiversity and hope that our ecological and economic well-being is maintained. There are clear signs that we are not treating our nature and natural resources in the manner which we need to do. But let's for a moment try to find out that where this global gross domestic product, everybody talks of GDP, who is contributing? And you can see these figures that forestry sector is contributing about $583 billion a year. Fisheries is worth another 150 billions, and the pollinators that I talked about is also providing huge services to mankind. Medicines, our health, the entire pharmaceutical company is dependent on nature and natural resources. Large number of drugs have a plant origin. They may be patented by labs, but the drugs, you need to have these ancestors in the wild, and therefore there is a need to conserve nature. So this slide sums up what I've been saying. Why should we conserve biodiversity? This is the question which people often ask. The response is it creates jobs, it provides ecosystem services, and a very good morning to all my young restoring that. This scenario sums up all that I've been saying. The only 2 countries which are not is Vatican, one can understand that, but the huge and mighty United States of America is also not a member of the CBD. So apart from these 2 countries, other 194 countries have agreed that we need to take steps in conserving, protecting, and restoring the nature. I wanted to spend a minute on what is called as the theory of change. We all want change in our personal life, in our professional lives, but how that change is going to come. And what you can see, I draw your attention at the bottom part of this graphic. Where are we today? Where we can be in 2030 and where we should be in 2050. So scientists and diplomats and everybody has put their act together, and we have been able to find out and agree that by 2050, we should have created situations where we live in harmony with nature. But now I want to draw your attention to the extreme left. Where are we today? We know the current status, how our ecosystems are getting degraded, how our species are getting lost, and how our human well-being is also getting jeopardized. What are the reasons? Reasons could be direct drivers, reasons could be indirect drivers. The good part in what I'm trying to narrate to you, that now the situation is very clear that where we stand today and what is driving this change. Because if you know these drivers of change, then only you can address that. And if you move now toward the right, we have set up a mission. We now are trying to work out the tools and solutions. What kind of tools are required? What kind of solutions are required? What kind of enabling conditions are required? How do we reduce these threats? And how the people's needs are going to be maintained and managed for food, for agriculture, for protein. All those things are very, very important. And therefore now scientists have set up these 4 goals and 23 targets. They compare all goals and all targets are important. And this negotiation took place more than 3 years. I was fortunate enough to be part of the Indian negotiating team, which negotiated this framework for over 3 years. And finally, it was in December 2022, we were able to get this agreement, which I said for 195 countries, that this is our vision, this is our mission. And by 2050, we should be aiming to achieve what is called as living in harmony with nature. Now coming to what we are doing now in the last 3 days, and today being the last day, that how do we implement the global biodiversity framework, its 23 targets, and we now have a time frame, as I said, for 2030 and 2050. I already mentioned that GBF was negotiated and consensus building by the CBD Conference of Parties took over 3 years in arriving to this consensus. But I want to now, it's a virtual session. I can't expect to get answers from you right now. That we will come back to the later session, which is what is a negotiation? What is all consensus building that we are talking about? We do it in our life in some manner, but the important point is that when it comes to Convention on Biological Diversity or CBD, this is what you need to understand. Nothing is agreed till everything is agreed. Just think about it. What it means in English language and what it means in reality. All 195 countries that I mentioned, which are part of the CBD or parties to the CBD, have to agree that yes, we agree these 4 goals, we agree these 23 targets. And when I say agree, it is the language, it is the content, what is written in that. What is target 3? What is target 5? What is target 15? What is target 23? The language of that. And that is where I realized in my 3 years of negotiating this document and this consensus building, that how difficult it was and how powerful the language is. What is the meaning of a comma? What is the meaning of a full stop? And how do you begin to get agreements upon? In real life situation, in a while from now, when you'll be working in groups, you will be asked to, you'll be given a problem and said that, okay, can we now agree on the text of it? What is our target? What is the language of it? And whether it is qualitative, whether it is quantitative, whether it is agreeing, and whoever is part of your group, each member of that group has to agree. If you do not agree, then you have to convey your disagreement and what are called as brackets or square brackets. If you do not understand the particular or do not agree with a particular frame or a word, then there is no agreement. And as I said, then this condition cannot be fulfilled. Nothing is agreed till everything is agreed. Now, let me explain for a while, what is this negotiation that I'm talking of? It's a process by which two or more people, it could be groups of people, they work together on an issue and arrive at a better outcome. I'll be explaining more about that. It is also a way to avoid arguing. See, any two of your colleagues can disagree. Even if we say as simple thing as that which movie is to be seen. One can say, I want to see Shah Rukh Khan's movie. Another one says, no, I don't like Shah Rukh Khan. I need to see some other movie on that. And we disagree. And if we disagree, then we cannot go to the movie hall and enjoy this movie. So that is where we need to stop arguing, avoid arguing, come to an agreement. And we try to persuade our friends and colleagues that why we should go and see X movie or Y movie, or why we should be prepared to accept this text or this target on that. It's a great tool for conflict management. Not only conflict management, but I would say conflict resolution. Because you cannot just keep this condition that every time you meet, you discuss the same thing. No, I wanted to go to see that movie. You say, I want to go and see that movie. It could be going to a restaurant, any choice, any group work by two or more individuals. It can happen only when you agree. If you do not agree, then the negotiations or consensus cannot be built on that. So what we need to do, what we are doing in our professional life and personal life, I always say they are interrelated. If in your personal life you can reduce the conflict, then you can also reduce them in your professional life when you go as a negotiator. So obviously it means what? It means giving something and taking something. See, don't we use the word, it's a give and take kind of a thing. It sounds very harsh, but that is the reality. Nobody gives you anything without a purpose. And when you take something, you are obliged to give something back. And that is how the negotiation process moves on, that you may have your original position, but then you need to listen, you need to talk, you need to understand and say that, okay, I have heard your points. There is some merit in what you are saying, and I can agree this far. But let me also then explain what are the 5 stages. The first and foremost is preparation. And without preparation, you know, you're all students, you go to your exams, you're writing the exam before that, you prepare. So preparation becomes very important. It could be reading, it could be writing, it could be listening, it could be talking to colleagues on that. So you prepare right from the start. When you understand that you will be going for a negotiation, you prepare with the subject matter under discussion. Then you exchange information. See, you and your group can have certain information which the other group may not have. So information sharing is very important before you take a stand. And many times clarifications are also required. We all understand English, we all use it every day, but you can also understand that sometimes miscommunication can take place. So that is again an inbuilt stages of negotiation that we need to look at clarification. Then comes this word. How many of you, I would say, in the lighter way, have bargained things? We do it. I remember doing it with my parents, with my sister, with my brother, that, okay, you give me this, I'll give you that. So this is what happens in real life too, that there will be bargaining involved in order to solve a problem. Then you need to conclude. And once you have concluded, you need to implement what your decision is. That ultimately, after so much of agreeing and disagreeing, if you can't eventually go and see a movie in a hall or wherever you want to, it is no good. So these are basically the 5 steps involved. But then there are some salient points in negotiation. And believe me when I say that everyone is a negotiator. You might be wondering, oh, I have never negotiated like that. How do I do that? And I recall my own understanding when I was nominated to negotiate. Every word that I said, every word that I listened was on behalf of the country. And one had to be very clear that the country's interest and everyone's interest and conservation interests are there. So everyone is a negotiator, I will say. Everything is negotiable. See, from a comma or a full stop or a sentence, whatever it is, everything you can argue and ask for that you want to make a change. But ultimately, we need to work out a win-win solution, which leads to mutual gain. And therefore, this win-win, as you can see, what I have written, it is an attitude. It's not that every time that you talk to a friend or a colleague, you have to win and say, oh, I have defeated her, I have defeated him, my argument has been accepted, her argument or his argument has been defeated. That is not. See, in real life, we need to look at a win-win situation. And in order to do that, you need to have what is called as the power of listening. Many times you would have realized that before even listening, before even our parents have said anything, you have reacted to those things. So power of listening is very, very important. We need to remain positive. Many times we behave differently when somebody challenges you. You recall, as I'm speaking to you, your mind should go back that these situations you have faced in real life, and you were a totally different person when somebody said, oh, you are responsible for this, you have made us defaulter on that, and how angry you were. So this is something which is very, very, very important, because while you would be negotiating, there will be some attacks and counter-attacks, some general attacks, some personal effect, but you need to hold your fire, because that is what the other person is trying to run you down by saying to it that the matter will be X and you will be diverted towards Y and Z, and the solutions will not come on that. So again, coming back to the salient points in negotiation, I repeat, prepare, prepare, and prepare. That is something, the more you would prepare on facts and figures and matter and domain knowledge, you will be better off on that. Many times when we are negotiating, we give the opportunity to the other person, goes on for 15-20 minutes, says so many things, you forget that what he was trying to say, what is the main point. So it's always very important that you summarize. You give a chance somebody to speak. When you will be working in group, you give a person a minute or two that, okay, can we have your views on that? And can we summarize that? Not everybody is articulate. I realize that during this negotiation, you may think something, you want to say something, but you actually say something else. So you have to understand that how the summarization can help and how articulation is important. You have to have always be thankful and courteous. Every time you open up your this thing in an international negotiation, you need to say thank you, sir, thank you, madam, thank you, friend, for telling that. And your body language and your verbal language should be something which is very, very courteous. Nobody should feel offended. Confidence is important. Your parents must be telling you that be confident. Teachers say, please be confident when you do that. But what you need to avoid is overconfidence. There is a very subtle difference between confidence and overconfidence. I cannot explain you. You have to feel it, that what confidence means and what it does, what overconfidence means. Many times you want to find out that what is in the mind of the other person. A situation has come up and you want to know, but there is no way in which you can do that. So that is where you can see here, the tips is that ask for an open-ended question. See, going back to the same analogy of seeing a movie, if you are with a new friend whom you have never met, how can you go and say that, can we go and see a movie, a Shah Rukh Khan movie? You need to put up an open-ended question. What are your interests? How do you spend your time? Is it thing of your interest? Do you like watching movies? Is it English or Hindi or Bollywood or whatever? So these kind of open questions also help to put the context. And then you listen. Many times you want to recheck and say, this is what you wanted to say. And if that person agrees, he will say yes. If he says, no, you have understood me wrong. I did not mean this, I meant that. Watch for non-verbal cues. See, when a person speaks, the words come out, you can interpret. But you need to look at the body language, the movement of the hand, the movement of the eye, the movement of the face. All these things also show what we call as a body language is very, very important. Even if a person has not said, you know, that person has felt hurt. See, what I'm trying to say is that there is not much difference between a professional negotiation or a negotiation on a personal matter. They operate on the same principles. You need to very carefully watch and find out that what you said or what is being discussed, is it of interest to that person? Does he feel keen to participate in that, or he or she has switched off on that? Staying cool and depersonalize disagreements. You can't say that you said it like that and I meant it like that and attributing it to a person. You need to understand that your language has to be very diplomatic. It has to be very soft, and you need to continuously do your homework. See, these negotiations don't take place in one go. Many times they stretch on for hours and days, sometimes past midnight, sometimes through the night. The countries agree or don't agree. And every time you come out of that particular session, you need to evaluate yourself. Did I do correctly? What could I have done? What would have been my correct things? So these kind of evaluations also help a lot on that. And as I said, understanding the issue fully before offering solutions. There are many people who will just say abruptly whether they have listened and what they understand the subject matter. Sometimes people also have a habit of giving an ultimatum. An ultimatum would be that, oh, if you don't agree with me, or if you don't agree to come and see a movie with me or a particular restaurant with me, I'm going to do this and I will never be friends to you. So these kind of ultimatums are also not something which help you to be a good negotiator. Then you need to do your homework. As I said, there are a large number of reports, there are a large number of material available. Now, I'm sure each one of you is using artificial intelligence in some form or the other. I'm not saying that imbibe it and agree it 100%, but you can always check on the facts, on the situation. It could be a chat GPT or whatever other forms that you use, but it will be good to understand what the current situation and reporting and data and information is. We must also look at the pace. Sometimes you get stuck on the very first sentence and you have been given an hour to discuss a one-page document and you get stuck on the first line. You spend some 45 minutes and then say, oh, we did not have time to do that. You monitor the pace of doing it. And again, as a very, very important advice, one should never tell a lie. See, lies are these deceptions. You think that by doing that, you can carry forward and nobody will know that. It doesn't happen. People will understand you sooner or later when you said a lie, when you did not observe the facts. And therefore, you need to be very, very careful on that. So finally, coming towards an end, what are the key takeaways? Very clearly written here, a negotiation is a strategic decision-making. Strategic decision-making, you understand, that resolves an issue in a way that both parties find acceptable, and therefore the results are a win-win outcome. That is what the success or ultimate success of negotiation is, that at the end, everybody feels happy that this is what we wanted, this is what we articulated, this was initially disagreed, but now it has been agreed, and everybody, then only the implementation will happen and it will be called as a win-win outcome. So when negotiating, be sure to justify your position. You're not just saying for the heck of it. If you say something, it has to be backed by science, backed by fact, backed by knowledge, domain knowledge. Sometimes it is good to also put oneself in other person's shoes. See, I always feel that when I talk to somebody who is disagreeing, I take a moment that why he or she is doing that. There could be some reason for that, which you are not able to understand, that why this our friend or a policy or a fellow person is taking that attitude. We need to look at very carefully that, as we say, put yourself in other party's shoes. We need to keep check on our emotions. Negotiations is not about emotions. We need to carefully control them. And at the end of it, I am also saying this, that when you think that you have done every bit, you have made every effort, still things are not moving, the other person is very, very insistent on certain things, we can also have the right to break away and walk away from those negotiations, because no purpose will be served. But this is the ultimate and the last step which you need to do when you have exhausted all those things. So these are basically two takeaways, and I'm sure that what we have been, or what I've been saying in the last 30-35 minutes must have registered to you. When you are giving an exercise and you start working in a group, you will realize that these traits and these tips are very, very useful. I also wanted to say that today we are discussing about the Convention on Biological Diversity. There are also 7 other UN Biodiversity Convention on trade on endangered species, on migratory species, on World Heritage Convention, and on Ramsar sites, and so on and so forth. Maybe some other day we will look at. But these basic negotiations that I talked about, all these conventions have their conference of parties where they discuss once in 2 years when they meet face to face, and there are huge amount of work which is done by the Secretariat in order to come up with material for discussing and negotiating on that. Lastly, I want to say that this particular program of yours has been very ably and efficiently run by WWF, and WWF also produced this graphic. It's a new deal for people and planet. 2 things become very important. We know there is only one planet, and we know there are millions and billions of people living here. We need to buy a new deal. When we talk of a new deal, we know what our problems are. We have already set up our goals. We also know the solutions. We also need to work out and say who the beneficiaries are. So in one single graphic, the slide and presentation of mine will be with you. You can look at it, that we are now trying to have the big picture, the problems, the goals, the solutions, the benefits out of it. And we need to work out on synergies, to work with each one in order to make sure that we remain positive. Lastly, we have dramatically reconfigured the fabric of life I've been discussing. We are interconnected, but we also face this inequality of many things that happens in our real life. So with these words, I want to thank you once again for being part of that. I'm now thanking on behalf of the organizers for the 4 days that you have virtually participated in that. There is some more program and activity after my session too, and I would request you that please participate in that and try to be a negotiator. Don't just think that, oh, Dr. Madhur can be a negotiator, I can't. I urge you that each one of you is a negotiator, and let's see your skills in the coming session, and I'm sure you will have very many opportunities in real life to negotiate for the betterment of your own personal appeal and for your profession that you will have. Thank you once again. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Mathur. I think it was quite engaging and quite interesting to listen to all the negotiations that all of us can do. I think we are all pumped up to negotiate. But I think, Dr. Mathur, we have a number of questions and we'll take as many as possible. The first question is from Yellow Train School and Aryav. They ask, why has the extinction rate of amphibians gone up so drastically?
Okay, thank you for that. See, if you have seen an amphibian, a tiny little frog and a tiny little toad, they are very, very sensitive to changes around them. For example, they live on the ground, they live in small burrows, And if we do some earth cutting, if we change the local temperature, if we change the local moisture, then their skin is very, very sensitive to this change. So all animals are subjected to these changes, but mammals have a larger ability to deal with that. And our experience is suggesting that the amphibians, the tiny little amphibians, have less ability to withstand any change. And therefore, any change in environment is going to affect them more. And that's where we say that they are a very good indicator of changes in climate. And therefore, every time you see a road building, you see a building coming up, you see some earth cutting happening, you have to think that this will affect the water channels, it will affect the drainage system, it will change the moisture regime, and therefore it will adversely impact the amphibians. And that is where their extinction rates are higher.
Thank you, Dr. Mathur. The next question is by Rimchim. What steps can be taken by students to reduce the challenges and help in conservation of biodiversity?
See, as we say in English language, charity begins at home. And that is where our Prime Minister, our Minister of Forests is talking about mission life. So see, you and I have a certain lifestyle, and that lifestyle has an impact or effect on the environment. For example, each one of us uses a car or a scooter or a mobile to travel. It has an imprint. There are emissions over there. But think of it that if we start using a bike or start walking, are we not reducing the impact on the environment? So these are small little things, recycle, reuse, all those things which are there. If we start practicing it, you remember we say that turn off the lights when you go out of your room, don't waste water. So all these things are indicating that small little changes, if each one of us does, it can positively improve the environment.
The other question is by Meera Prabhakar. What steps can be taken by students to convince stakeholders in the field of any target without any legislative power or authority to carry out our action plan?
See, that is what most people think, that if I have a legislation, if I have a law, if I have an authority, I can do that. But my view is that yes, laws and legislations are needed, but try to unlock the power of persuasion. And by setting up good examples, by not preaching, but by doing. These small little things can bring drastic change in the environment and our well-being. So as charity begins at home, start doing some good things. People will see them, people will register them, people will say, okay, this young child is doing that. If you say something that, okay, we should not waste our food, we should not waste our water, we should not pollute water bodies, all these things is going to have a drastic change. So while you wait till you become enabler of policy and governance, but start doing the small little things in your daily life, and imagine 1.4 billion people doing it, what a drastic change it can make to our environment in India.
Thank you. The other is by Sanchit. What can we do if we encounter a scenario where there is a hazard to biodiversity, but it cannot be negotiated?
Well, as I said, that you need to weigh everything. You need to prepare, you need to understand what is negotiable and how much you can go for it. If a particular activity is totally damaging to the environment, yes, we have to stop it, we have to regulate it. But if you think that a small little change can make things better, and I believe that mostly it is the lack of communication. We are not able to communicate what are the beneficial effects. We are not able to communicate what are the harmful effects. If we can do that, then people listen, people act.
Okay, I think we have the last question from Preet Kaur. Is preserving biodiversity more important than economic development? Why or why not?
Well, that's a very good question. See, there cannot be any economic growth at the cost of ecology. This is something which we need to understand ourselves. and then tell others on that. These have to go hand in hand. These have to go together. Because if you think you're gaining economically by destroying the environment, those gains will be of very short time only. And that is the reason now people are understanding, the businesses are understanding that it pays a lot to invest in ecology and environment for their own businesses.
Okay, great. Do we have time to take one more question? Okay. So then the other question is, what is the correlation between declining biodiversity and increased vulnerability to pandemics in densely populated bioregions? I think it's also by Preet.
It's the same thing. See, now we are seeing the connect. You remember what happened during COVID-19? I am not arguing that whether it was the virus was engineered in a lab in China or not. But what we know that in the city of Wuhan, where it was first observed or detected, a lot of exchange of meat was taking place. So as we buy the domestic meat from markets in Wuhan, they were selling domestic meat, but they were also killing wild animals. And they were bringing those wild animal meat in the same market. So there was an exchange of meat and tissue and blood and everything. And that led to the spread of virus. I also explained that most of the diseases today are zoonotic in origin. That means an animal could be involved. So in this particular case, it is assumed that bats were involved. And once this virus jumped onto the human, the rest is the history. No matter of containment could work, no matter of whatever steps we were taking. So we need to be very careful on that. And we need to ensure that we do not disturb the integrity of our forested environment.
Thank you so much, Dr. Mathur. It was wonderful of you to answer all the questions so meticulously. All the other students, the questions that have not been answered, we will make sure that they are answered and sent to you. But thank you so much, Dr. V.P. Mathur.
And I did answer some ones on the chat, at least 6 or 7 of them. Yeah.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you so much. It has been pleasure taking this session. I am sitting in a remote location in Gangtok, but I'm pleased that I could take up this Q&A session. Thank you, children. Thank you, teachers. Thank you, WWF. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye. Okay. So before we move to the last session for the day, we have a very quick trivia time for all of you to refresh everyone a little bit before we come to the Tech for Conservation session. So you will get some questions on the screen and you will again have
sessions. And what I'm going to do is in 2 parts. I would be talking, as you can see on the title,
and then we. Okay, so you'll have 20 seconds to answer the questions. You can use the chat box to write your answer. And so let's start with the first one. Recently, 2 wetlands have been added to the Ramsar list in India. Which state are they located in? So we are waiting for the answers. Yes, the answer is Rajasthan. Okay, the next question is, which state recently became home to India's first private biosphere inspired by the movie Avatar's Pandora? State. We have not had any right answers yet. Yes, the answer is Uttarakhand. Which Indian state is home to the country's first wolf sanctuary? Okay, let's reveal the answer. It's Jharkhand. The first photographic record of a clouded leopard preying on a Bengal slow loris was captured in which Indian state? Yes, the answer is Assam. In 2016, this state became the world's first fully organic state. Which one was it? Yes, the answer is Sikkim. Amazing. So I think we come back to our last session for the day. So we would like to welcome Dr. Arindran Gopala, Director, Technology for Conservation at WWF-India and the Coordinator for the EICP Program Center. With the PhD in wildlife science and over 30 years of experience, Dr. Arindran has worked extensively on wildlife ecology and conservation, focusing on key species like tiger, elephant, and rhinoceros. A pioneer in geospatial applications for conservation, he has led several GIS-based projects, supervised over 150 master's theses and 6 PhDs, and contributed to numerous research publications and books. We welcome you, sir. Over to you.
Thank you, Shruti. Well, good afternoon, everyone. Let me share my slides. So my talk, it's going to be very different from you've been listening to policy and how the biodiversity can be preserved. But I am going to talk about technology, what we use and how we use technology to understand. So how much of biodiversity is lost? Where is the biodiversity loss is happening? How are you going to answer those? You need to have an understanding of how to measure them. So to measure, you need to have a technology. So I'm going to briefly give a presentation on what technology we do use in understanding what's the effect of biodiversity, what's the effect of climate on the biodiversity, where's the biodiversity loss is happening, or let's say how the forest cover is changing. How do we quantify them? So I'll be talking about technology, mainly how the GIS, the Geographical Information System, and the data where we collect it through a satellite is called remote sensing. So I just give a few examples. How these two technology put together is very, very efficient tool for measuring the rate of biodiversity changes or losses and what's happening on the ground. Those areas where we can't even reach, but we can understand through this satellite technology that what's happening even without going to those locations. Sitting in a lab or anywhere in the world, you can monitor what's happening in the environment field. So let me share the slide. I'm just trying for a slideshow. Yeah, I guess you can see everyone. Is the slides visible?
Yes, sir.
Yes, yes.
Okay. So let me start with the basics. Very, very important. I'm sure many of you must be using this tool these days in the form of Google Images, or when you're ordering your food, or when you're hiring a cab. The tool is already been extensively used by all of you in the background, because the satellite technology, which is very, very important in monitoring or understanding where the movement of any object is, and the background as an image, which is the GIS image, which actually helps you in understanding what is the rate of movement and where they are, which direction, what is the speed. So since everybody is used to Google Images or Google Maps, so Google Maps came in 2010, but earlier before that, the technology was developed last 40, 50, almost 60, 70 years, way back in 2040, roughly 40, 50, I would call it. Actually, the technology has started coming into the human use. Canada and US was leading in this. Slowly, India started having our ISRO space station way back in 60s and 70s. We did launch few satellites. The 80s, we launched few satellites. We were using satellite images. So to differentiate how this GIS work, so we have this system. Basically, it's more of a software. It's called GIS, Geographical Information System. Combined with the satellite datasets, the entire map is created. So what does a GIS does? It creates data. So again, to understand little more detail, any data in the sense, if any human being, let's say any tree or presence of any object on the ground, it can be marked using a GPS. So they'll be in a position, the coordinates is collected and it can be put on a map to know exactly which space they are actually occupying. Once you create, then you have more data sets, attribute data set. So if you want to differentiate between various points on the ground, let's say whether it is a building, whether it is a tree, whether it's a moving object, or let's say it's a park, or it is a railway station, anything, you need to have an database attached to that point. That's called the attribute. So the GIS, what it does, it gives a location of any object on the ground. It manages those attribute data when you do an analytics. And when you run a data set, let's say you want to know which is the shortest distance to reach from our location to a railway station or to the national park, or understand how a tiger is moving, the GIS does all the work. But the data behind that is collected based on the satellite data sets. So what else GIS does? It's just a simple thing I've explained, but to understand the patterns, what is the relationship between all this geographical entity on the ground? What is their location, how they are distributing, how they are spatially behaving? All those things analysis, when you do an advanced level of analysis using this software, you will get a clear picture for planning and for implementing a policy. Now coming to the remote sensing, how it works, very simple. When sunlight falls on every object on the ground, it reflects. So the satellite, which is flying some thousands kilometers above the ground, they capture these reflections. The process is done there itself and is transferred to the ground station somewhere in India. We have in Hyderabad, which Department of Space it belongs to. They process the data and then they distribute those data sets to all the scientists across India. So we people get those data set. We use the GIS software, we use the processing software. We reconvert those information in a form of a picture or a map where we understand what's happening. So when you do regularly this on a given location, what happens? You will understand the changes that is happening, or what is the growth is happening. Whether the forest, let's say for an example, if forest is getting more greener, or when they're getting drier. So seasonal level changes you can see, whether the forest is in contact, in the sense it's completely degraded, or whether it's getting towards it's reaching a degraded situations, or there is a flash flood, where is the water is moving, those sort of things. Multiple things you can do monitoring using the satellite data sets. And not only by satellite, these days they use a lot of drones locally to understand if a immediate location level and small locations, if you want to understand what is the condition of an area, or if you want to monitor something, then we can use spacecraft, or you can use a drone, which is the recent technology, and multiple technologies are used these days. At WWF, just need to give you a background also. What we do in WWF, we have our own database, data hub, basically across, if you see this map, across entire India, we put our effort in considering whether it is a landscape or species or sustainable agriculture or sustainable business or climate change. So we address all these issues across these landscapes within India. But to address this, technically, we need to use technology to understand where is the change happening, where is the impact of climate is happening, where is the impact of flash flood is happening, or where the growth is happening, where the changes in the crop is happening, where there's a forest cover change is happening, whether the forests are losing their leaves, forests are growing, whether plantation is developing. So all sort of things we can do using this technology. So cutting edge technology we use these days, high resolution satellite images, where we can actually pinpoint each tree also. That's a level of understandings or development. The technology has happened for the last 30 years. When I started my career, I still remember 30, 40 meter of resolution, where we may not be able to differentiate between trees, but we have data sets available, satellite imagery, which is that every individual tree can be marked. Then you do modeling and scenario planning. We use these data sets, multiple data sets to understand and project it for the future, what will be the situation. And these days, all the maps which you see on a internet is all based on online web mapping. So that is a technology which has been developed, which also internally also we have used a lot of. I'll be giving one small example how online map is very useful. These are the various applications. I'm sure Dr. Savnur Pandey and Dr. V.B. Mathur V.B. Mathur had spoken about how to measure the biodiversity. What is the importance of understanding the biodiversity, and all those SDGs. To reach SDG goals, we need to have a measure. So these are the various uses, how we can use this technology to understand what is the land use, what is the present land use, because land use keeps changing. It's a very dynamic system. What is the changes? Disaster management, like flood, or whether it is a GLOF, you can immediately analyze and understand the impact. Climate change impacts are very much possible. So much of data collection using sensors is possible. Resource exploration, like geographical geological maps, is very important to understand where the oil lies or where the coal lies. Those things they use. Forest cover. We have indices these days are developed based on the various proxy database using data from the satellite image. Then you can calculate moisture, conservation planning. So various, I've just given an example, multiple examples where habitat suitability, fragmentation, which is the most discussed, corridor issues, how the corridors getting degraded or fragmented. We are able to measure those things using the technology. Just to give an example, when you look at this map, many may not understand exactly what is this. Of course, you must have seen multiple maps, but those maps are more for a common user. But this is based on satellite technology. So if you look at this, it's a Ramganga basin, a water basin, and if you look at the entire basin, you can see a yellowish color. This is an agricultural land where human dominant landscape. But within this, you also have a very 30% of the area is covered by the forest cover, and you can see this blue color is a huge dam. So this is produced based on the data which is collected from the satellite, and when it is processed using this images, when we process it using the software, we get this output. It takes time. A lot of mathematical calculations and algorithms are run, but it comes with experience, and field level data is incorporated to get an accurate picture is what's happening. So if there is cities enlarging, a city is growing in certain direction, those things can be measured, or can be which direction it is moving. Those can be calculated. So that's just to give an example. So there are multiple satellites are available. That's some of the examples which I've given. These are very old satellites. Recent satellite, as I said, that we can get up to 30 centimeter resolution. So again, very important. You should understand what is resolution. So resolution, like I'm sure it's equal to your the megapixel or of your cameras, mobile phones. Better the megapixel, better clear the clarity of your picture, or more dense, the quality of the picture will be. Similar thing applies to the satellite image. Lower the resolution, that is 30 centimeter, you will be able to pinpoint roads, you will be able to pinpoint each tree or even a vehicle moving on the road. Coarser the resolution, it will cover a larger landscapes, but you may not be able to go to the information at that level. You will get a landscape level information. So resolution really matters a lot. Now, this is just an example how we work on corridors. So this is where we have use satellite image, GIS data, a lot of field data, camera traps. On the field, we have measured certain things, and we have come out with those corridors, which are very good connection. There is a breaks in between the connection, whether the animal will be able to move through, negotiate this through. So it's a lot of complicated analysis we have done to understand how it is a connect. It's a map of a central India where the tiger corridors are. We have mapped. Best part is we have used both satellite data, GIS image, and we are able to monitor what is happening. Every 10 days, or let's say 15 days, we'll be able to 15 or 20 days, we can call it. We can monitor regularly what is happening on the ground, each at the pixel level also. So if there is a few trees also removed, we can monitor those things. It's possible. Even plantations where they are doing plantation, what is the crop pattern, where is the crop growing, those things can be monitored. So it's very easy. Sitting in one corner of a world, you can monitor the natural resource, what's happening to the biodiversity using this technology. This is another example of how suitable is a certain area for a certain species. Again, it's not so simple. We need to do a lot of spatial modeling, mathematical and algorithm, where we run certain analysis to identify those habitat which is suitable for any species. In this case, I've just spoken about rhino suitability mapping. So the entire one of the part of the Dudhwe, we wanted to understand where are those grasslands, where are those areas where rhino can live if we reintroduce the rhino in these areas. So that level of analysis can be done using the satellite, and we can go to pre and post. The best part is 15-20 years back, what was the situation? If this is the situation, our business usually is continuing in, degradation is happening, what will be the condition next 20 years? And we can have a simulation picture using these data sets. So that's the beauty of this, using the satellite technology. Now, again, this small here, we have done analysis to understand probable assemblage of a frog, the laughing frog they call in Western Ghats, which are their habitat likelihood they like to occur. So this map helps them in doing a survey, narrow down their survey in those specific locations and look into the probability of their occurrence. So this is the level of support in the wildlife research that technology helps. Rather than going around the entire Western Ghats, they can just have to go into these places where the dense habitat suitability is there, and if they measure, they'll understand what is their habitat and how many numbers of this particular roughing frog, whether they are there or existing or not, they can identify on the field. Other example I wanted to give to understand how a forest fire is behaving. So this is one example of Sikkim and North Bengal in a 3D mode we have just represented. So that's also possible. Based on the data sets of last 10 years, we looked into the pattern of forest fire, which are those area hotspots is happening, and which are those area, the distribution of hotspots, which are those areas, cold spots, no more fire happens. How many years, last 10 years, the burnt has happened, burnt has happened, and whether there are continuous 10 years there was a burning, or if you look at this picture here, there was few burns here, the first year, second year, again there was nothing much burnt, then again 8th, 9th, 10th year it burned. So this is, you can understand in a location last 10 years how that the fire has behaved. And if you look at the reddish portion in this entire the location, Sikkim and West Bengal, these are the areas which are the hotspots of that. This is again based on multiple data sets and analysis we have used to understand the spatial pattern and distribution of the fire. So it's called space-time cube. And you can also project and see in those areas, if this is the pattern the forest fire is happening, using certain environmental parameters, we can do artificial intelligence-based model to understand where are those vulnerable areas likelihood to burn in the coming future forest fire season. So forest fire is again a seasonal event. November to April, it happens across India, various states. So we'll be able to predict vulnerable areas using these data sets. Data sets not very simple, a lot of complicated, data uses or spatial data are used, multiple proxy data are used to understand and calculate those areas where likelihood the forest fire is likely to happen. So that helps the forest department in planning their resource properly. This is another example, hydrological, not only forest fire, hydrological aspects. So GLOF, which I was talking about, the high altitude where suddenly the lake, high altitude lakes, it suddenly fills and breaks and it comes down, like what happened in Sikkim, in Arunachal, or somewhere in the Himalayan states, in Uttarakhand. Those we can monitor now in advance and alert the local people who are living in those areas using satellite technology. We can't reach those areas. Certain areas is very difficult to reach. So using satellite data, we can actually understand what's happening in those higher ups, and we can also understand the climatic conditions in those areas. And we can, like I have mentioned here, you can know where are those aquifers are lying, where are those hydrological drought likely to happen because of whether there is a recharge zones, how this year rainfall has impacted the groundwater. At a level of in the fluctuation between the groundwater, those things also can be based using sensors and satellite data can be measured. And nothing more than that, also drainage connectivity, whether if you look at mainly in Sundarbans, when the undulating of certain villages happens or small islands, that also can be measured, how sea level rise is happening. Or if you look at Brahmaputra, how the river patterns keeps changing every year, where is the deposition of those sand mounds are happening. Those things can also be monitored. This is another example where we calculate indices based on certain indices like NDVI. It is a a vegetation index, and we have wet indexes, and we calculate NDBI also, and also MSI. So these are the various indices which we use to calculate and understand that if you are able to, if you are planning to do some vegetation or restoration, in the ecology part, if you are restoring certain species, whether they will survive in those areas or not, based on the earlier data sets and present data sets, we'll be able to say that, okay, the moisture index will develop if you plant certain species, and your vegetation pattern in this thing, in those plants will change, which in turn will help the local farmers. The groundwater level will increase. Whether the groundwater level has increased based on the work which they've done in this area for restoration ecology, whether that is successful or not, can be measured using the satellite data as well as the indices and some field work. So that's a level of, we can also calculate the future, whether your project is successfully, it's contributing as objective or not. The second image, if you look at this, we're looking at the urban heat island index. So we are doing post monsoon, pre monsoon. What was the urban heat island? How it has impacted the local. Let's say this is of Delhi map. We have looked into a few parks where the let's say pollinators, how these pollinators are behaving, because the heat index of, because of a lot of new we can call it built up areas have increased a lot, so the heat is reflecting a lot. Then you have ACs, not a lot of ACs coming up, external unit, which is actually contribute to the local heat, and that's how the urban heat island is impacting the local biodiversity. To calculate that, we used, one of our students is working on that. She has used the urban heat island index to understand how it is impacting the local pollinators and how they are adapting to the urban heat island. So that's a level of analysis, or that's a level of understanding we can have using this technology. This is another project, multiple projects. Just to giving examples, we have high conservation value. Those areas which are very highly needs to be conserved more. That basically we should not go do any development activities in those areas. But to achieve or understand whether it is highly conserved areas or not, we have to do a lot of analysis, multiple level of information, spatial information in the form of climatic and then biodiversity based and human based, human values. So we calculate based on this, giving a local, each layer has a value, and when we calculate and we'll identify those areas which cannot be completely compromised at all. No development activity should come. So this is one example in Changtang landscape we have done. This is another example across India, where all those areas which has a high conservation value areas, which is completely non-compromisable. This is the level of, you can do the analysis sitting in a lab somewhere in Delhi using the data sets and a little bit of field work. Imagine traveling entire India, we can't do that. So I can do this in maybe 6-7 months, just few field trips and sitting in, and I can come out with an accurate map exactly explaining where is those high conservation value. Now, this is another map which I want to citizen science. I'm sure everybody do use a lot of apps. So we use this developed for one of the project in central India, where we wanted to understand what is a green asset available based on the citizen science. And this is another thing, which another map which shows how the islands within the Brahmaputra landscape. Basically, we can call it a river. There is multiple small islands keep cropping up every year depending upon how the flood level. And this is again comparing that with climatic factors, whether each year the rainfall, the temperature, the erosion, the moisture. So multiple climatic parameters we are calculated last 10-15 years to see whether they are impacting the changes, the river course changes, other than not only the water, but these parameters also is changing across these landscapes. So this is why I'm explaining. This is very much possible to go back and front using satellite technology. Now, this is another, I was telling, the recent technology updates in the field of GIS is having geoportal enterprises, where all of your work can be pulled together in a form of an interactive map, explain your donor, or you can explain any scientific community what you did in science, develop, run analysis, look into a map, create maps, download maps, and you can also edit map. Doing it online. If we don't have to know excellent GIS skill set, but you can use this dashboards. You can call it a dashboards, interact with them, do some analysis. Like Google Map is also another dashboard which have been, or if you look into the NRSS dashboards where you can download data, you can check data, or if you get interactive maps, all are done on based on this principle, interactive geospatial dashboards. Now, other than that, we use the technology in WWF to understand how the animals are moving. Let's say tiger, elephant, rhino, vulture, or gharial, or even a fish, a golden mahshir. So we do tag them. Either it is a satellite tag, or we use VHF tag, that is frequency tag. Basically, it's a radio frequency tag. So they are different. GPS satellite is different. VHF using a transmitter is different. So it depends upon where, which animal, what is your objective. Generally, we use a lot of GPS satellite. So this collar which you are saying, it's of tiger. It's been placed on a tiger. It looks larger, but yeah, it's not very heavy. It is around 1.3 to 1.7 kilos only, and if we generally place it in the neck of a tiger, and we are able to monitor where they move, how much they move, what habitat they use, which season they move, where do they rest. Those things can be monitored. Not only tiger, mainly we use in India, and with WWF we've been using in a lot of elephants, tigers, leopard, and also now recently last 1 year we've been monitoring rhinos in Dudhwa to understand what is their movement pattern. So again, this is why it's possible to understand how our resource, mainly the wildlife resource, mammals are behaving. We get an idea to create policy, or we can come out with policy exactly what is their habitat suitable areas, where are their movements, where are their corridors, where are the habitat, they are outside protected area. Also, they use a lot, especially elephants. So we'll come to know what is their status. Those habitats where why human wildlife conflict is happening. Where are those areas where the wildlife conflict is happening? What is the status and quality of those forests? Everything in one goal can be addressed using this technology, remote sensing and GIS. This is just a picture which you had to show. This is how we putting collars on the tiger. Then this is on the vulture. We have tagged it. This is how a vulture tag. I've shown earlier that tiger collar. Now it's a vulture tag. Once it tagged it, this is a movement. The entire Uttarakhand in Rajaji took orbit. The bird was moving. It's one of the vulture we had tagged, and their movement in last 1 year we've been monitoring, and this is how the analysis are done. Sorry. So we know what is their home range mainly. So it is more of an residential bird. It keeps moving internally across this landscape. They don't go really away. So we know the spatial movement ecology of this bird. Where do they rest? Where do they sit? Where do they breed? Where do they hunt, or let's say where do they drink? Everything can be monitored depending on your objective. We can set the collars, we can set these tags to understand. So we know the main pattern of their movement is these are concentration on their this part of the and this location, and some on this location, some. So we know these are very important habitat for the birds. So we can overlay multiple layers behind and understand what is the land use pattern it is using, which are those areas where they go for hunt. Mainly vultures, they fly down to, mainly it's a dump sites they go. So we can actually understand how the dump sites are there, where are those locations, whether they are safe for the bird, all those things, multiple things can be, the derivations can be brought out based on this. The best part is that, having just a tag, a satellite-based tag, we are able to understand. This map. If you look at this graph, it's the way, the altitude, where they flew, what speed in 1 year, which are the locations. So this can be represented like, which are the, sorry, various land use which they use, a percentage of land use. So water is 1.9 in their entire. So mainly crop areas, their forests, they are using 55%. So that's the level of understanding you have when you tag a bird. It's not a bird, it will be different. Tiger is going to be different. Leopard is going to be, rhino is going to be different. Gharial is going to be different. So this is an example of that. Then coming to the next, not only that, artificial intelligence, we are able to identify invasive species. Very important. Dr. Mathur was talking about, and also, I think Dr. Soundarpandian did mention about invasive species, how they are impacting our local biodiversity. So we need to address that. So it's not easy to map them. So we use artificial intelligence, satellite technology. Technology is very much a part and parcel of this analysis. They identify those areas where the dense invasive species, assemblage is there, and then you go and you can clear them up though. So that's where, the technology comes into use. This is one example, how not only typically a habitat or something, we can also look into the species level identifications, species level eradication if it is an invasive species. Then comes to the main important, as I was talking, the development of the technology, where it is heading to. All today is interactive, web-based, and artificial intelligence-based technology. So artificial intelligence is very much used. We are still in developing, and of course, Google AI is one of the which has been very much used across globe. But yeah, it depends upon what is the technique we are going to implement in each of a project. It will differ depending upon your objective. Just to give an example, like how this is based on locations of those areas where human wildlife habitat is human wildlife conflict is happening, whether they are uh, uh, outside the PAs or inside the PAs. So the dashboard actually automatically picks up those location based on its scrap technology, language based. They run it, and every day when whichever the collections of those has been published in newspaper or other thing, they are picked up and they are plotted here. So you just have to click each. This now are not a dynamic one, just for presentation showing. So you click it, you get an idea which location, which area, where, and what is a human wildlife conflict incidents. Other than that, also that we are also monitoring the development projects across India uses this scrapping technology using AI. Then coming to that, now this is the dashboard, which is a live dashboard we have developed, though I'm not showing it live now. We wanted to understand how the vaccine inoculation is happening of those cattle just on the border of the protected areas. So Dr. Mathur was talking about zoonotic, disease. So we need to protect the wild animals from getting that transfer of zoonotic disease into the cattle, because when they interact, when they are close to each other, there's possibility. So we do, inoculate with certain medicine to all those cattle across those protected area boundary. So we wanted to understand where, which location, how many, which village, which house, how many cattle were inoculated. So this was that dashboard. Then coming to this, I would just take a few minutes to give a live demonstration. So this, if you look at this, this is a live demonstration of a project which we had very recently developed, where we are trying to use artificial intelligence and some indices using satellite technology to identify those plastic debris along the rivers which are reaching the coast. So we are doing it in Goa and we are doing it in Odisha. We have implemented this technique. We are still testing it. It's a pilot project. They're able to identify plastic debris up to 80% accurately on the ground, depending upon the sizes. So it can't identify a single bottle or a single wrapper, but of course, your concentration of certain size has to be there on the ground. Things will happen eventually, probably if you have the technology growing, we'll be able to identify those also. Second thing, there are ghost nests which floats are submerged within the water. They also cannot be identified by this technique, but people are working on it to get those technologies so that we can totally clear the plastics in the marine environment. Very, very important. You can just see a picture here with the background of a picture. Look at the amount of plastics has been. It's just maybe one day. Every day it's going to be a different scenario, and it's really worst what's happening. So here, what I'm trying to say is, not only the technology is evolved in such a way that we are just doing maps. Of course, maps are very important. A 2D map is very important, but 3D map is always better than a 2D map. An interactive map is more better than a normal map. So dynamism, very much important. So as the technology has grown, integration of various technologies happening, we are able to produce near real-time or sometime real-time solution, map-based solutions. So here's an example. So I will click, I don't know, just check whether if it goes to a different window, I have to again stop and 1 second, let me check that. So I'm clicking here. Okay. Are you able to see any changes in my slide or in my presentation?
Yes, sir.
So the survey form is getting like if I say data store, if I'm saying survey form is working.
Sir, we can't see the form.
Okay. Okay, can you see that remote sensing and machine learning? Is it floating? Can you see that? No.
So when we click on
So what I can do is, one second, let me stop here. I will share again the live dashboard. Yeah, can you see now? Can you see this movement of this text? Because that's a live dashboard.
Yes, we can do now, sir.
Okay. So this is what I'm trying to say. So how we have put across all our analysis, analytics like data input, data analysis, response to the data analysis, and the application, how it is working. So this is a recent development which we have done it, and we are also going to present it to few government officials in the coming week. So here the survey, when I click the survey again, I have to stop and share that with 1 second. That's a yeah, 1 second. I'll keep sharing that here. So if you see this, when I click there, yeah, you get a survey like this, survey form. It's a live survey form. So you can click, you can write your name, you can, anything you can, and with the latitude, longitude automatically on your mobile. So this is a mobile app developed. It will collect the current location wherever you take the look, wherever you find the plastics somewhere in the coastal areas. So it's done for Goa. It's also done for Odisha coast, few of the Odisha coast, where automatically you can put your survey, everything you fill in the information. So just this is a form which we have developed, and it'll work on both OS, both iOS, isn't it? iOS, also in the other one, Android based. So it'll work on both the. So this is the form which you fill. Anyone public can fill it. Once this is done, I'll go back to the So here again, the data is. Sorry. So I'll show once the data goes to the dashboard. I click on it. So I click again data store. You get to see the entire data. I'll share it again. How it looks. Then you get to see something like this. So every input from, it's a random thing which I've done it just for a test pilot. But once we implement or once we release this software, I'm sure the public will be contributing to this. So you get the village name, block name, automatically latitude, longitude is collected, survey date, survey time, mobile number, wish to give or not. It's up to you. Plastic, what sort of plastics is you have seen from your, it's ocular estimate basically. What sort of form, quantity, let's say whether it's half a kilo, 1 kilo, something, some so that you get a data sets, the location wise, because this is going to help us also in improvising our AI model. Once we get this data from the field, I will keep on refining our model algorithm. These are the various information which is collected based on the software. Okay. Now I'll stop here. I'll go back to my. What is that? Get confused. So unfortunately, I'm not able to share in single window. There is some issues, but yeah. Not working. One second, just because I want to show how the data comes in. Yeah. It's not working. Just give me a second. Mhm. Yeah. Can you see the response, this dashboard? Can you see that?
Sir, not yet.
Okay, just a second. Okay. Yeah. So the data store, I showed it to you. Now the data, once it is collected, how does it respond? So this is all in one applications. Since in presentation it comes each window, I'm not able to share the continuous windows, but yeah, I'll show it as a response window. I click, you get something like this. I'll share it with you. Just a second. So once a response, so you can see this. So this is how the response will be. So once you fill in the data, the dummy data, so number of plastic point, it's all interactive. Okay, so you can zoom in, you get to see what is a plastic source, plastic form, seasonal changes, surrounding land use. So whoever feeds in. So if I zoom in, if I'm looking at this point particularly, then you get to know which is that area, who's that, which is that area, location. You get a look. You get a complete. You get a picture also for that. Then what is the average proximity area which they have seen the plastics? What is an average number of plastic points within this window? So this sort of interactive thing put together in one dashboard gives you a clear-cut idea of monitoring what is happening in a seashore. So here, what I am trying to importantly share is that the technology has grown to the level where, 1 second. The last one I wanted to show where the plastic detection applications. So plastic detection application, the last one, which actually anybody can. Now we are planning to do in such a way that anybody can use the application in an institute level, and they can. That's very. It automatically runs on the algorithm which you have developed, and yes. This is where the final output comes in. So it's a live dash. This is a live analytic dashboard. It automatically downloads a satellite image, runs the algorithm of your location. It can be any location across India, especially coastal location. It'll download the satellite image and it will identify those plastic, and it will quantify roughly which are those locations where the plastics are lying. I am trying to 1 second. I'm trying to. This is the last one. I'm trying to. 1 second. Okay, this is the plastic one. This is earlier. So 1 second. Yeah. So the plastic detection, I'm clicking it. I'll show you that one, how it comes. So this is the plastic so I can select here. So anyone across India can use this app. We'll be sharing later stage once it's cleared from the donor. We will be sharing it to the public. So I can select one. Let's say I know this is Goa. So Goa till in March we had a very good April we had a good cloud-free data. So I run it and I say generate map. So what it does, it runs the algorithm behind of your location wherever the satellite image is available. Again, the satellite image is free. It's a 10-meter resolution, but it will identify running this algorithm automatically for your location, and it will identify plastics floating in that area. The important checkpoint here is that it depends upon what is like. It's automatically done. So this one, if you look at this, I'm sure everybody can see this. You can zoom in. These are the probable areas where the plastic. So 9th March in Goa, these are the areas where we had plastics, identified plastics based on the satellite image. It's a live. So probably if I run it for now, today, if it's satellite data is available, it will calculate. But the only issue with Goa now is you have cloud cover. So cloud may not allow, it will be completely, white in color. So that is one restriction, some issues. That's one important, I would call it a, drawback in this, because the technology is not improved where it can, there are technology which below cloud also can be seen, but that's not so visually easy to run an analysis for that. That's for different purpose. But visually available data sets are like this, satellite data, which is like, freely available. So this, what does this software does? It automatically depend upon each date, whether the satellite is there, it will download. it will run the algorithm, calculate for those areas. So it is done mainly for the beach areas. It will calculate how much of plastics, which are those locations the plastics are available. So this is the project objective we have developed, and this is freely developed software from our side, which will be now donating it to Goa University. And we want to run and trial on this and see that the data collected from the ground, the analysis what we do, are they matching or not? So this is one solution we have brought. We are trying to implement for various locations. In Puri Beach also, we are trying to run this, support the local admin with this. But it's still in a development stage. We have tested it once or twice, and as I said, the accuracy is 80%. But the technology, that's the best part, very easy. So administrative level, if they can implement and if they're able to identify those plastics, they can go and collect locally. They can implement and they can collect those plastic even before it reaches the coastal areas. So that's the main point. So when they are floating along the river and they are reaching the coast, before reaching coast, if they're able, we are able to pinpoint those areas where the plastics are floating into the river. They can collect there itself, so they can at least avoid them reaching the coastal, the ocean, or at least they'll be contributing, at least reducing the plastic reaching into the coast area. So that's where the technology has really helped us. So sitting in one place, you can get the data sets, you can calculate what are those plastic areas, where how they have how they have behaved, what's a floating pattern of um, those plastics, how much of those plastics are there, where are they, quantify you can do actually. So that's what the entire samples which I wanted to give it to you. I wanted to show it to you. So this will be sooner we'll be implementing this. I hope all of you will be benefited by this, and we are anyway evolving, and we are like on this, and we are developing more and more codes and the algorithms, so that to improvise the quality of the these sort of tools which can benefit the society as well as also support causing damage to the biodiversity marine environment. Thank you from my side. Any questions?
Thank you. Yeah, thank you so much, Dr. Indran. We have a few questions. One would be from Chandrakanthi Public School. They have asked, what are the potential long-term consequences of I don't know if no. What are the potential long-term consequences of reduced biodiversity on human health and agriculture?
I think already Dr. Very straight example I can give, but Dr. Mathur had explained that. Yeah, so one first impact I'll say, your bees, which are very, very important pollinators, they are getting impacted a lot. No bees means you can understand what's no pollination. No pollination means naturally that's going to impact your agriculture or even your horticulture or anything. So that's indirectly the reduce in diversity that's going to impact, and that's also going to indirectly affect your food security. So biodiversity is very, very, very important. We still are we are inventing, or we can call it, like recently also we found some few species in Arunachal has been discovered. We just don't know what is their importance in the frame in the biodiversity spectrum. Each one must be contributing very important things for us, our survival. So we need to look into that. So very, very important. Pollinators is a straight answer, where impact, once that's out of the spectrum, we are in deep trouble. Yeah.
The other question was, what are the ethical implications of using genetic engineering to preserve endangered species?
You mean ethical issues?
Ethical issues.
Yeah. Well, it's a long answer, but yeah, I will just give it. I would say that the way the destructions of the biodiversity is happening, probably we need to protect their genes. We have to keep their genes, storing them so that for future. But it doesn't mean that we can bring back dinosaurs or something, which may not be fit into the system. But very, very gene therapy is, again, if you look at the human being, gene therapy is very, very important these days. It's resolving a lot of disease which was not resolved for almost 100 years. So we need to preserve those genetic diversity a lot. Very, very important. We just don't know when what will come into effect. Now that science is developing, technology is developing. This might be a boom for us in the future if we have, if we are able to protect or if we are able to restore or if we are able to store some important genetic material. Yeah.
Aryav has asked, what extent does the deforestation rates are detected? Can GIS detect a gradual but small scale deforestation? And are there any effective or any cost-effective measures?
Yeah, very much. GIS and remote sensing itself is a very, very big cost-effective technology because it's evolved, as I said, 30 years. It was not possible maybe, but now, yeah, sitting in one small area with few thousand rupees, you can actually identify those areas where the forest loss is happening. Well, in India, we don't have really a great, huge forest loss happening, unlike in other Asian countries for complete diversion, But yeah, some places it does happen. Forest loss can be monitored, even gradually also monitored, and also degradation also can be monitored. Species-wise monitoring can be also done these days. We have enough technology come. Still, we are working on it. Certain technologies available where species level phenology monitoring can be done, species level productivity can be done, carbon sequestration. So, but the tool GIS and remote sensing is an important backbone of all this, all this measurement. That's why I said, how do you know where the biodiversity loss is? No way other than measuring them using this technology. Yeah, of course, visually we'll see, but yeah, technology is very, very important.
And I think the last question we would be able to take for today. What are the challenges of using GIS to model species distribution in the face of climate change and habitat fragmentation?
Well, not much challenge, to be honestly. Yeah, of course, integrating the climate change data set is slightly a ticklish issue because we may not have a very good resolution of climate data. We are dependent of the international. Of course, India data is these days available, but still, the resolution of those data set may not be very useful for doing a micro level analysis. Let's say microclimatic, many species, we only look at tiger. Everybody is interested in tiger, but we are losing a lot of other species, which is let's say lesser smaller cats or lesser vertebrates which are very specific to certain regime or climatic conditions or microclimates. There, how do you going to measure them? What is a slight change in temperature? What the entire sex completely changes. In the lower vertebrates. So that's the situation we are. Yeah, there are the challenges of the data sets, but spatial data sets, imagery, satellite, all those things are available these days. We have to adjust with whatever best, especially for the species modeling. We can bring it, improvise them, and a lot of ground truthing also is very well. We just cannot completely ignore the groundwork. We need to do some ground truthing, match it with the indices and analysis, then we can come out with exactly what's happening. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Dr. Ranjan, for answering all those questions. So thank you, everyone. Thank you all the participants for joining today and staying with us for so long. We conclude the day today, and thank you very much for listening so patiently. It was really fun. So bye-bye and see you tomorrow again, sharp at 10 a.m.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone.